266 Snatching, Lin Fan's Principle. As soon as the bald man finished speaking, many higher-ups nodded slightly. Thank you, readers. Obviously they agreed with him. They had been in the entertainment industry for too long and had seen too many such things. On the internet, there were often people who suddenly appeared with high popularity. However, these people were often like small sand dunes. Once the waves hit them, nothing would be left. Zhao Peng said, I know, well, it's useless for me to say more, you should understand after watching this video. Then he turned on the projector. Immediately, Ling Ru, who was wearing the star diamond dress, appeared on the screen. She was holding a microphone and singing Galaxy. Watching this, the pupils of all the higher-ups present constricted, and their faces were filled with shock and intoxication. When the video ended, everyone was still staring at the projector. The entire conference room fell into silence. Zhao Peng looked around and explained, this is the video I recorded at the concert today. The phone's functions are limited, so be it her singing or her stage presence, they aren't conveyed very well. The feeling I had at the scene was definitely several times better than this. At this moment, the chairman, who had been sitting at the head of the table and had not spoken all this time, said, just do as Director Zhao said just now and do your best to establish a partnership with Ling Ru. The final blow. In fact, Gundong Entertainment was not the only entertainment company that had its eyes on Ling Ru. Those companies either had a meeting at night like Gundong Entertainment, or they were prepared to wait until tomorrow morning to discuss it. Perhaps they were already working on a plan. The timing was different, but their goal was the same. They wanted Ling Ru to cooperate with them. Lin Fan and Ling Ru had no idea about all of this yet. The next day, when a gentle breeze blew past the treetops, Lin Fan slowly opened his eyes. He looked at Ling Ru, who was lying quietly beside him, and the bright red marks on the white bed that looked like plum blossoms. He could not help but smile. At this moment, Ling Ru seemed to have sensed something. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. When she saw Lin Fan in front of her, she could not help but recall what had happened yesterday. She was like a shy rabbit, her face flushing red as she buried her head in the blanket. Her movements seemed to be a little too big. She felt a tearing pain in her lower abdomen, and a pearl-like teardrop rolled down her beautiful eyes. Ling Ru, are you all right? Lin Fan asked with concern. I'm fine, Ling Ru said with some difficulty. At this moment, Ling Ru's phone rang. She turned her body with difficulty as if she wanted to pick up her phone. Lin Fan said, let me help you. As he spoke, he directly handed the phone to Ling Ru. Ling Ru looked at the caller ID and saw that it was an unknown number. After a moment of hesitation, she still picked up the call. May I ask if this is Ms. Ling Ru? A magnetic voice came from the phone. Yes, it's me. May I ask who you are? Ling Ru said softly. Hello, Ms. Ling. I'm Zhang Zioqian, the general manager of Gundong Entertainment. I wonder if you're willing to cooperate with our company. Our Gundong Entertainment company is willing to give you leading roles in TV shows and movies, let you release records, go on variety shows. You'll also receive more than 10 million yuan if you sign a contract with us, Zhang Zioqian said. Ling Ru's expression changed slightly when she heard the voice on the phone. Although she was only a resident singer at the bar, that did not mean that she knew nothing about entertainment companies. On the contrary, she was very familiar with entertainment companies. That was because when she was free, she would pay attention to the entertainment news. She knew that Gundong Entertainment was one of the top 10 entertainment companies in the country. She had once dreamed of entering such a big company. Now, Gundong Entertainment was actually taking the initiative to call her. Furthermore, she was even being offered a contract that would pay her 10 million yuan. She would be able to appear on TV shows and movies, release records, and go on variety shows. This, even in Ling Ru's dreams, she had never dreamed of these things. After a while, Ling Ru came back to her senses. However, she did not say anything immediately. Instead, she looked at Lin Fan. She understood that the reason for this call was entirely because of Lin Fan. Then Ling Ru said, Ooh, I need to think about it first. We, Gundong Entertainment, really hope to work with you, Zhang Zioqian said. Of course, I know that this matter requires careful consideration. If you have any other requests, you can tell us. Our Gundong Entertainment has high hopes for you. At the same time, we also have great sincerity. Ling Ru and Zhang Zioqian chatted for a while before hanging up. She had just hung up but received a few more calls. Without exception, they were all the top entertainment companies in Hua Nation. Every entertainment company offered very generous terms. Ling Ru looked at her phone and hesitated. Lin Fan gently stroked Ling Ru's hair and said, "You want to go into the entertainment industry?" Ling Ru nodded. Lin Fan was not surprised by this answer. Whether it was Ling Ru's musical ability or her ability to perform on stage, everything showed that she was very suitable for performing and singing. Lin Fan said, "If you like it, then go for it. I won't keep you by my side. If you run into any trouble, you have to tell me at any time because you're my woman." His words were overbearing yet sweet, making Ling Ru blush even more. Lin Fan was not just saying this casually, he had always kept his word. Otherwise, he could just have all his women live in the coiling Dragon Villa complex. He did not have to do anything and could guarantee that everyone would have no worries about food and clothing for the rest of their lives. Instead, he let Qin Yuxuan start an investment company in Mado, he let Chu Yunyu manage Flower Stem, and he let Hu Tian continue to be a lecturer. If one loved someone, one should give them enough freedom, not tie them tightly to one's side. Lin Fan said, "You must be a little tired from yesterday, have a good rest. I'll get someone to send some breakfast over." "All right," Ling Ru replied. Then Lin Fan slowly got up and walked out. He first sent a reservation message to the Michelin restaurant. After washing up and sitting on the sofa, the phone in his pocket rang. "Mr. Lin, am I disturbing your rest?" Wang Fengyi, the general manager of the Imperial Hotel, spoke through the phone. "No, I've been awake for a while," Lin Fan said. Wang Fengyi heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Yesterday's concert cost a total of 149 million yuan. I've already sent the details to your WeChat. In addition, there's still 351 million left from the 500 million you gave me. Shall I return it directly to your merchant bank account?" 267 15,721 red packets, a great harvest. Back then, after Lin Fan agreed to help Ling Ru organize a concert, he immediately contacted Wang Fengyi. "Thank you, readers." Lin Fan explained the rough requirements and transferred 500 million yuan. In Lin Fan's mind, Wang Fengyi was able to manage the Imperial Hotel in an orderly manner. His ability should be pretty good. From the results, Wang Fengyi did not disappoint Lin Fan's trust. When Wang Fengyi received 500 million yuan, he was a little stunned. As the general manager of the Imperial Hotel, he had made friends with big shots from all walks of life. It could be said that he had a certain understanding of concerts. Generally speaking, a few million yuan would be enough. In the end, Lin Fan gave him 500 million. 500 million. Was Lin Fan not afraid that he would run away with the money? After being stunned for a while, Wang Fengyi used all his connections to order the best audio equipment, display screens, clothes, and so on. The reason why the final price was different from what many netizens had guessed was that the 10 Rolls-Royce and the MD-902 helicopter all belonged to Lin Fan. No money was spent on them. Lin Fan curled his lips and said, "You only used that much." Wang Fengyi's mouth twitched slightly. That was 149 million yuan. Was that a little? His poverty had limited his imagination. Lin Fan continued, "All right, just send it to my merchant bank account." Just as he hung up the phone, a crisp notification sounded in Lin Fan's mind. Level 7 reward, 100 yuan for every breath, 100 yuan for every second of sleep, and 100 yuan for every step taken. Rewards are distributed at 12 a.m. daily. At level 6, he could earn about 3.5 million yuan per day. Now the reward was doubled. In other words, he could earn about 7 million yuan a day. Even though Lin Fan did not lack money now, when he saw the system that had not been upgraded for a long time being upgraded again, he could not help but smile. Upgrade cost 69.8 million 500 million not including gifts and gambling. In addition, all items obtained from the system are prohibited from being traded. Lin Fan was in a good mood. He slowly placed his attention on the silver packets and muttered in his heart, I received a total of 10 silver packets from this mission. Let's see what I can get. Ding, congratulations, you've received 500,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 200,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained Hayating Building. Ding, congratulations, you've received 100,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained Xinmei Entertainment. With 10 silver packets, Lin Fan received a total of 2.7 million yuan, a luxury building, and Xinmei Entertainment. Seeing this, Lin Fan could not help but reveal a strange look. 2.7 million yuan was nothing to worry about. Hayating Building was a newly built high-end office building. When Lin Fan was playing with his phone, he accidentally saw a piece of news. It seemed that this building was located by the river and had a total investment of 5 billion yuan. It had just been built, but it became his. In addition, he also got Xinmei Entertainment. Even though Lin Fan did not know much about the entertainment industry, the name Xinmei Entertainment would often appear at the beginning of movies and TV shows. Obviously, Xinmei Entertainment had a certain level of strength. In other words, he helped Ling Ru hold a concert and then obtained a large entertainment company. Lin Fan rubbed his nose and muttered, looks like my luck today is pretty good. Hence he turned his gaze to the check-in system. Sign in. Ding, congratulations, you've received a double shares coupon. Seeing this, Lin Fan's eyes lit up. Doubling shares was definitely a good thing. Not long ago, after he used it on Penguin Group, he directly increased his shares from 5% to 10%, causing Lin Fan's assets to instantly increase by 250 billion yuan. Now that he had obtained another one, if he continued to use it on Penguin Group, then Lin Fan's shares in Penguin Group would reach 20%. His assets would increase by 500 billion yuan. However, Lin Fan did not immediately use the double shares coupon. Instead, he thought about it for a while before making a decision. Ding, do you want to use the double shares coupon for Little Tanuki Group? Yes. Ding, successfully used. You now own 10% of the shares of Little Tanuki. Using the double shares coupon on Penguin Group could yield more benefits, but Lin Fan's goal was to take back most of the shares of Penguin Group and Little Tanuki Group that were in the hands of foreigners. Thus, there was no need to care about temporary gains and losses. Last time he chose Penguin Group, this time he chose Little Tanuki Group. This way he would not be biased. Little Tanuki's market value was 5 trillion yuan, and now he had an additional 5% shares. Hence, Lin Fan's assets increased by another 250 billion. Lin Fan rubbed his nose and smiled. Looks like today's luck is indeed not bad. Then he turned his attention to his phone. At this moment, there were 15,712 unclaimed red packets on the screen. Among them, 14,900 red packets were earned from spending 149 million yuan on this concert. The rest were the millions that he spent in the past. In the past, the reason why he did not open the packets was that he wanted to collect 1,000 of them and open them together. Now he had gathered 15,712 of them. This was the first time he had so many red packets. Lin Fan thought that his luck was pretty good today. Without any hesitation, he chose to open all of them. Ding, congratulations, you have received 3 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 5 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a land certificate. Ding, congratulations, you've received 19,999 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained the double skill card. Ding, congratulations, you've received a skill level upgrade card. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a land certificate. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a 1 yuan critical hit card. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained expert level dancing technique. These 15,721 red packets gave Lin Fan a total of 2,320,811 yuan. Lin Fan acted as if he did not see this amount of money and ignored it. His gaze first fell on the land certificate. Land certificate. After use, you can obtain land within 10,000 square meters and the ownership of all the buildings on it. More land means more wealth, and at the same time, it'll show more charm. Seeing this, Lin Fan's eyes lit up. One had to know that the total area of a typical residential area was only about 5,000 square meters. 10,000 square meters meant that he could own 2 residential areas. If it was some office buildings that were closer to each other, he could probably own several of them, right? Land certificates were definitely a rare treasure. As for himself, he had just obtained 2 land certificates. Even Lin Fan could not help but smile. 268 Upgrade the Eyes of Truth joined them. Then Lin Fan's gaze landed on the double skill card and the skill level upgrade card. Thank you, readers. Double skill card, you can double the ability of a certain skill for an hour. You'll possess more powerful skills and display more charm. Skill level upgrade card, you can upgrade a skill level. Mastering even more profound skills will make you more fascinating. Lin Fan was very familiar with these 2 cards. It was because he had used them before. Even before Lin Fan opened the 15,721 red packets, he already had 2 double skill cards and 1 skill level upgrade card. The double skill card had a time limit, so Lin Fan had not used it yet. As for the skill level upgrade card, he only had one for the time being. He wanted to save it for when he needed it and be more selective with the skill he chose so as to be prepared. Now he could use one of them. Hence, Lin Fan turned his attention back to the system. Skills: professional driving skills, charming aura, 5% chance of triggering love at first sight, unforgettable memory, violent aesthetics, drinking gentleman, professor level mathematics experience, eyes of truth. After some consideration, Lin Fan locked onto the eyes of truth. Do you want to upgrade the level of eyes of truth? Yes. Ding, upgrade successful. Congratulations, you've obtained the eyes of true sight. Eyes of True Sight possesses all the abilities of the Eyes of Truth. In addition, you can see the specific origin of the object. Seeing the origin of an object lets you grasp things that ordinary people don't know. You get to display amazing charm. Eyes of True Sight. See the origin of the object. Lin Fan could not help but feel puzzled. He used the Eyes of True Sight on the marble table in front of him. In an instant, he saw a slab of marble getting discovered, processed, polished, and carved. The entire process was like a movie scene, appearing very clearly in Lin Fan's mind. Seeing this, even Lin Fan could not help but reveal a look of shock. Then he used the Eyes of True Sight on the cup on the table, and then the clock on the wall. This feeling, it was as if these things were all personally made by Lin Fan. It was incomparably magical. Lin Fan could not help but praise, this skill level upgrade card is pretty good. Then his gaze fell on expert level dancing technique. Expert level dancing technique, master all kinds of dancing techniques. You can be all powerful on the stage and show off your charm. Dance. Lin Fan nodded his head in satisfaction. 1 yuan critical hit card. After spending 1 yuan, you'll receive a reward of 100 million yuan. Lin Fan only glanced at it casually and did not take it to heart. All in all, this concert allowed Lin Fan to obtain 5% of the shares of Little Tanuki Group, a high-end office building worth 5 billion, a large entertainment company, 2 land certificates for a plot of land up to 10,000 square meters, expert-level dancing technique, and a 1 yuan critical hit card. At the same time, it raised the system's level to level 7. Furthermore, Lin Fan's Eyes of Truth became the Eyes of True Sight. On the other hand, Lin Fan had only spent 149 million yuan to organize this concert. This was definitely a great harvest. At this moment, a crisp bell rang outside. A man in a white shirt was standing outside the door with high-end lunch boxes in his hand. Seeing this, Lin Fan opened the door. "Sir, this is the breakfast you ordered," the man said respectfully. All right, Lin Fan replied. The man bowed slightly and said, enjoy your meal. Whether it was his tone or his service attitude, they were all very good. Ling Ru seemed to have heard the noise outside. She dragged her tired body and slowly walked out. Lin Fan said, you're up, since breakfast has arrived, let's eat together. All right, Ling Ru replied. Then she and Lin Fan sat down at the dining table and opened the high-end lunch boxes. When she saw the delicious food in the lunchbox, Ling Ru was slightly stunned. Sea urchin egg, big scallops, bird's nest porridge, seafood porridge, truffle egg tart, caviar cake, and beef. Ling Ru could not help but say, this, how much is this breakfast? About 30,000, Lin Fan replied casually. More than 30,000 yuan for breakfast. Even though Ling Ru already knew that Lin Fan was rich, she could not help but widen her eyes. One had to know. Her monthly food expenses were only 3,000 yuan. In other words, today's breakfast was almost a year's worth of food. Lin Fan did not care about Ling Ru's surprise. He personally scooped a bowl of bird's nest porridge and handed it to Ling Ru. You're still a little weak. Drink something light to warm yourself up first. All right, Ling Ru stuttered. When she drank the first mouthful of porridge, Ling Ru could not help but exclaim, it's delicious. Lin Fan smiled, if you like it then have more. Yes, Ling Ru said. This breakfast was definitely the most Ling Ru had ever eaten. One had to know. Lin Fan had ordered enough for 3 men. In the end, everything was finished. Ling Ru named it Operation Disc. The lunch boxes were empty, and Ling Ru's stomach became round. At this moment, Ling Ru's phone rang again. Hello, Ms. Ling, I'm Li Xiaofei, the general manager of Dafeng Entertainment. A middle-aged woman's voice came from the phone. Ling Ru had already answered several similar calls. It could be said that she already had some experience. When she answered the call, she was no longer as nervous as before. She seemed much more relaxed and indifferent. Hello, Manager Li, Ling Ru said. Dafeng Entertainment is very optimistic about you, Ms. Ling, Li Xiaofei said. Like the representatives of the previous companies, she listed out a lot of conditions. Thank you for your offer, but I'd like to think about this matter carefully. Li Xiaofei said, yes, this really needs to be considered. However, Ms. Ling, Dafeng Entertainment can definitely give you the best resources. The two of them chatted for a while before hanging up. Ling Ru opened her phone's reminder and slowly wrote down the name of Dafeng Entertainment as well as the general remuneration and relevant contacts. Then Ling Ru looked at the names of the companies and their benefits. She was lost in thought. You haven't decided which company to choose yet? Lin Fan asked. Ling Ru shook her head and said, no. What do you think of Xin Mei Entertainment? Lin Fan asked. Xin Mei Entertainment is one of the top 3 entertainment companies in Hua Nation. Its celebrities consist of A-list movie stars and singers who occupy almost a quarter of Hua Nation's market. They're also the company I want to work for the most, but they didn't call me, Ling Ru said helplessly. Lin Fan said, then join them. Hey. 269 invitation, verification completed. Ling Ru was puzzled by Lin Fan's words. Thank you, readers. Did she not just say that Xin Mei Entertainment did not call her? Could it be that Lin Fan knew someone from Xin Mei Entertainment? It seemed like it was really possible. At this moment, Lin Fan's phone on the table rang. Lin Fan looked at the caller ID. It was an unknown number. He did not hesitate to answer the call. Hello, Lin Fan said. Hello, is this Mr. Lin? A respectful voice sounded from the phone. Lin Fan said, it's me, and you are? Hello, Mr. Lin, I'm Wang Heiahua, the chairman of Xin Mei Entertainment. The voice on the phone became even more respectful. Oh, Chairman Dong, what's the matter? Lin Fan asked. I just found out that you acquired Xin Mei Entertainment today, Wang Heiahua said carefully. Do you think we need to hold a meeting between the higher-ups and the artistes? You could guide the company's future development. Back then, the general manager of Imperial Hotel, the chairman of the Yinshan Group, the chairman of Xiao Wu Wholesale City, and the others had all sent similar invitations to Lin Fan. However, Lin Fan rejected all of them. He had no interest in such meetings. This time there was no surprise. There's no need, the company will continue to develop as usual. I won't be hands-on regarding the management, Lin Fan said calmly. When Wang Heihua heard this, he was overjoyed. He had his own plans for the future development of Xin Mei Entertainment. If the new boss needed to make adjustments, it would definitely not be a good thing. Wang Heihua's tone did not change, but his attitude became more respectful. All right. Wang Heihua's heart skipped a beat. He finally understood why the publicity for the concert at Jiangbei City Stadium was so intense. He understood why it was done so lavishly. All of this, it was all because of his new boss, Lin Fan. He got Penguin Group, Little Tanuki Group, and Alphabet Group to vigorously promote it. He spent hundreds of millions on the concert venue. This boss of his was much more powerful than he had imagined. After a while, Wang Heihua said, I understand, I'll definitely handle this to your satisfaction. All right, that's it, Lin Fan said. After saying that, he hung up the phone. At this moment, Ling Ru, who was sitting beside him, was completely stunned. It was because she had heard everything that was said over the phone. She was not eavesdropping on purpose. It was just that she was sitting too close to Lin Fan. In addition, there was no other sound in the entire villa. Under such circumstances, it was difficult for her not to hear him. Lin Fan acquired Xin Mei Entertainment today. First, he helped her hold a concert at all costs. Then, in order to help her enter the entertainment industry, he directly acquired one of the top 3 entertainment companies in Hua Nation. Ling Ru looked at Lin Fan, who was sitting in front of her. Her beautiful eyes started to well up with tears as a teardrop rolled down her face. These were tears of gratitude and happiness. No one had ever treated her so well in her life. Lin Fan wiped her tears away and asked, Why are you crying? Ling Ru did not say anything. She used the most primitive and instinctive way to answer Lin Fan. Oh epsilon. 3 epsilon. About 2 hours later, Lin Fan and Ling Ru slowly separated. At this moment, Ling Ru's phone rang again. Ling Ru adjusted her clothes and answered the call. Hello, is this Ms. Ling Ru? A familiar voice came from the phone. Ling Ru replied, Yes, this is Ling Ru, may I ask who you are? The voice on the phone became even more respectful. Hello, Ms. Ling, I'm Wang Heihua, the chairman of Xin Mei Entertainment. I had a call with Mr. Lin earlier. We've prepared the best manager, makeup artist, and fashion designer for you. We've also allocated roles in many movies, television shows, and programs for you. When will you be free to come to the company to make the arrangements? Ling Ru finally understood why the voice sounded familiar. He was the chairman of Xin Mei Entertainment. A manager, a makeup artist, a fashion designer, as well as roles in movies, TV shows, and programs, she could have her pick. What kind of treatment was this? Ling Ru suppressed the excitement in her heart and said, I can come over any time. Wang Heihua thought for a moment and said, Then, is tomorrow okay with you? Of course, Ling Ru said. As soon as she hung up, Ling Ru's phone rang again. This time it was her mother. Even though Ling Ru previously worked in the bar every day, her family was still worried about her. In fact, her family was very strict. Her parents had been worried for the entire night since she did not go home last night. Therefore, when she received the call, Ling Ru chose to answer it and go home. Regarding this, Lin Fan also expressed his support. After the two of them were intimate for a while, Lin Fan drove the Mercedes-Benz and brought Ling Ru back. Lin Fan did not stay outside for long. He returned to the coiling dragon villa and lay on the soft sofa playing with his phone. Princeton University, America. These days, Jeffrey had given up on all activities and classes. He spent almost the entire time in the Institute for Advanced Study, carefully checking the complex Hale conjecture. It was not until today that he finally completed the thesis and sent the results to annual mathematics. If it were an ordinary person, they would definitely be exhausted after working hard for a long time. However, Jeffrey's face was filled with excitement. Hey, Professor Jeffrey, why haven't I seen you for days? Professor Adavan said. Because I'm in the midst of witnessing something big, Jeffrey said. Something big, Adavan was puzzled. Hale conjecture, someone has solved the Hale conjecture, Jeffrey said excitedly. Who they came up with the answer process, Ativan said anxiously. Hey, don't get so worked up, my friend, Jeffrey laughed. I'm not too sure who it is. As for the content, you can wait for the next issue of Annual Mathematics. Even though there was a detailed explanation process in his email, it would be against the rules if he showed it to others. Of course, more importantly, if he were to show it to Ativan, how could he act all mysterious afterward? Naturally, Lin Fan did not know that the Hale conjecture that he had solved had passed the verification process and was about to be published in Annual Mathematics. Of course, even if he knew, he would not be surprised. This was the answer given by the system. How could it be wrong? As for Annual Mathematics, Lin Fan did not care at all. A day of leisure passed in the blink of an eye. The next day, Lin Fan did not order any food. Instead, he drove the Mercedes-Benz to a restaurant a few kilometers away. After all, sometimes lying down was also very tiring. Lin Fan had just eaten his fill when the phone in his pocket rang. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was the chairman of Little Tanuki Group, President Ma. Hence, Lin Fan did not hesitate and answered the call. Good morning, Mr. Lin, President Ma laughed heartily. Good morning, President Ma. Why did you call me today, President Ma? He asked after a pause. President Ma laughed. Can't I call you for no reason? Then he added, however, I did call you this time because I have something to say. Mr. Lin, you should know that our country is now vigorously developing the central region. Jiangbei is the central part of Hua Nation and the center of development in the future. Of course, we have to keep up with the pace of the country. So, other than establishing a branch in Jiangbei 2 years ago, we're also preparing to invest and acquire a group of companies. Recently, the person in charge of our branch in Jiangbei told me that he has inspected a group of companies with more potential for development. He asked me to go over and decide if we need to invest or acquire them. I rushed to Jiangbei early this morning for this matter. Mr. Lin, are you free later? Do you want to come over and give me some advice? We can have a meal together afterward. I miss the special delicacies of Jiangbei so much. It had to be said that De Ma was indeed the capable person who founded Little Tanuki Group. When he spoke, he was full of tricks. From the general direction of the country's development, the topic of conversation gradually became about giving opinions and eating. In reality, yesterday, President Ma suddenly found out that Lin Fan had bought another 5% of Little Tanuki's shares. Hence, Lin Fan's total of 10% of Little Tanuki's shares made him a major shareholder that far surpassed the CEO's ranking. De Ma was not worried, he just did not know why Lin Fan would increase his shares, so he rushed to Jiangbei early in the morning. His purpose, he just wanted to meet Lin Fan and have a chat with him. Regarding this, Lin Fan understood everything clearly, however having a meal was not a problem, sure. De Ma laughed heartily and said, haha, all right then it's a deal. The two of them chatted for a while more before hanging up. When Lin Fan walked out of the restaurant, a graceful figure appeared in front of him. Han Tian, Lin Fan shouted. Han Tian slowly turned around and her pretty face immediately revealed a hint of surprise. She called out, Lin Fan. Today, Han Tian was wearing a dress with floral patterns. Her long black hair hung down naturally like a waterfall and it swayed in the wind. Her entire body was filled with a faint fragrance. It was extremely charming. Lin Fan asked, what are your plans today? I'm not going to work today, I'm going shopping, Han Tian said. Shopping? Lin Fan could not help but recall that he had only casually given her 2 Gucci bags. After that, he did not give her anything else. In addition, the time he spent with her was also the least. Thus Lin Fan said, then I'll go shopping with you. Really? Han Tian's beautiful eyes instantly became crescent-shaped and there was a faint starlight shining in them. She was extremely beautiful. Lin Fan smiled, of course it's true, let's go shopping. Then Lin Fan drove his Mercedes-Benz to the shopping mall with Han Tian. They first walked into Chanel. Welcome to Chanel. The dignified female shop assistant quickly came up to them and said, may I know how I can help you? I'm here to help my girlfriend buy some clothes. Do you have any recommendations? The shop assistant secretly sized up Han Tian. Then she praised, "Your girlfriend is so beautiful. I rarely see a woman with such fair skin and such a good figure like her." It had to be said that the shop assistant's ability was not bad. With just a few simple words, the relationship between the few of them had unknowingly become closer. "Thank you for your compliment," Han Tian blushed. "How is this a compliment? This is the truth," the shop assistant said. Then she pointed at a few clothes not far away and said, "I personally think that these two white dresses as well as those pink and light-colored clothes are more suitable for you." As she spoke, she took out the two white dresses and said, "Moreover, these clothes are all 100% pure cotton. They'll be very comfortable to wear." When Han Tian changed into the clothes recommended by the shop assistant, her already perfect figure became even more prominent. "Do you like it?" asked Lin Fan. "Is it comfortable to wear?" Han Tian nodded. Then Lin Fan took the two pieces of clothes that he had picked out and said, "Try these two." "All right," Han Tian replied. After a while, Han Tian walked out wearing the clothes that Lin Fan had picked out. Han Tian's figure was simply too good. Every piece of clothing she wore made people's eyes light up. Lin Fan seemed to have realized this and asked, "Do you want to try on other clothes?" "No need," Han Tian said. Lin Fan said, "All right then, wrap up these clothes." When the shop assistant standing at the side heard this, she was excited and quickly asked, "Do you wish to purchase all the clothes here?" One had to know. This was a Chanel store. 3 pieces of clothing would easily cost tens of thousands of dollars. To her, it was a considerable achievement. Lin Fan shook his head. "No, including the clothes you pointed out just now, there should be a total of 8 pieces." The shop assistant was obviously stunned. She could not help but ask, Are you sure?" "Is there a problem?" Lin Fan asked. "No problem at all." The shop assistant was very agile. She quickly folded all 8 pieces of clothing and said, "It's a total of 137,899 yuan." Beep. Lin Fan took out his bank card and placed it on the machine. The bill appeared. At the same time, 13 red packets appeared on Lin Fan's phone. Seeing this, the shop assistant's heart raced. She then bent down and said, "Thank you and please come again." After Lin Fan and Han Tian had left, the shop assistant mumbled, "What a godly tycoon." Immediately after, she revealed a regretful expression and said, "If I had known, I would have pointed at a few more clothes just now." 271 Cartier, Galaxy. After Lin Fan and Han Tian left Chanel, they walked into the bright and fashionable Cartier jewelry store. "Thank you, readers." "Welcome to Cartier," the salesperson standing at the door smiled and asked, "May I help you?" Lin Fan said straightforwardly, "I want to buy some earrings, necklaces, and bracelets for my girlfriend. I want all of these." The smile on the salesperson's face widened. She secretly sized up Han Tian's facial features and figure before praising, "Your girlfriend is so beautiful." She paused for a moment before continuing, "We received a very beautiful set of jewelry 2 days ago. It's called Galaxy." Galaxy was designed by a famous designer from country F, Mr. Huntereb. The entire set includes earrings, a bracelet, and a necklace. Not long ago, Mr. Hunter won a grand prize at the International Jewelry Convention because of Galaxy. Currently, in all of Hua Nation, only our shop has Galaxy. It can be said to be a unique set of jewelry. "Do you want to go to the VIP room with me?" For cheap jewelry worth thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, Cartier would put them on the counter outside for people to choose and buy. If one wanted to buy expensive jewelry that was worth millions or even tens of millions, one would have to go to the VIP room to buy it. Firstly, it could highlight the mystery and preciousness of the jewelry, thus providing a better experience for the customers. Secondly, it could also protect the safety of the jewelry. Under normal circumstances, the sales assistants would not easily let customers go to the VIP room. Some stores even had to verify the customer's capital. However, Lin Fan was holding 8 bags of Chanel clothes. Of course, if it was just because of that, the sales assistant would not have let the customer go to the VIP room directly, nor would she have recommended Galaxy. The most important reason was that the salesperson accidentally saw the watch on Lin Fan's wrist. It was a Vacheron Constantin Tour de L'Isle. The most important ability of a salesperson of a high-end brand was to have a pair of eyes that could easily recognize all kinds of luxury goods. Obviously, this salesperson was such a person. She recognized the watch at a glance. Even though she was faced with countless luxury goods every day, her heart could not help but jump. Vacheron Constantin Tour de L'Isle was a luxury watch worth tens of millions. This was definitely a very distinguished and high-quality customer. Lin Fan did not hesitate and replied, "All right." Then, under the guidance of the sales assistant, Lin Fan and Han Tian walked to the VIP room inside. The place was very spacious and bright. The entire place was decorated in a European style. The air was filled with a faint fragrance, giving people the feeling of being in a European castle. It was filled with the aura of nobility. After the employee invited Lin Fan and Han Tian to sit down, she brought over a set of exquisite refreshments. Then she carried a diamond-studded sheepskin box and walked over carefully. Even the box exuded a luxurious aura that filled people with anticipation. When she arrived in front of Lin Fan and Han Tian, she first put on a pair of white gloves before slowly opening the diamond-studded sheepskin box. The crescent-shaped earrings, the ripple-like bracelet, the crown-like necklace, all of them appeared in front of Lin Fan and Han Tian. Under the illumination of the lights, the three pieces of jewelry were all emitting a dazzling light. They were gorgeous and resplendent like a flowing galaxy. They were very beautiful. This was simply a box of treasures. Although the sales assistant had seen Galaxy several times, she would still feel a little surprised each time. Now that she saw it again, she could not help but be fascinated. As a result, she did not give a more detailed introduction at the first moment. After a while, the salesperson finally calmed down and said in a yearning tone, "The earrings in this set of Galaxy consist of 2-carat diamonds and 8 small diamonds. They represent the sun, the moon, and the 8 planets, which is our entire solar system. The bracelet is made of platinum and 365 diamonds, representing the edge of the Milky Way. The necklace is made of ruby and countless diamonds. It represents the center of the galaxy and countless stars." Lin Fan looked at Han Tian, who was already attracted by Galaxy. He said, "All right, I'll buy it." Huh. The sales assistant was stunned for a moment. She seemed to be in disbelief. She gently moved her throat and said, What do you mean?" "I'll pay by card." Lin Fan took out his bank card. "Buy." He really wanted to buy it. The salesperson almost jumped up in joy. However, she forced herself to calm down and reminded him, "Sir, the price of Galaxy is 4,888,888 yuan. As it's a new product, there's no discount for the time being. However, I can help you apply for a small gift." Lin Fan's expression did not change at all. He nodded casually and said, "All right." The salesperson swallowed her saliva and calmed herself down a little. She turned around and brought over the POS machine. Beep. After the soft sound of the machine, a receipt for 4,888,888 yuan appeared. For every 10,000 yuan spent, he would receive a red packet. At the same time, 488 red packets appeared in Lin Fan's phone. It was this soft sound that pulled Han Tian back to reality. Lin Fan picked up the earrings, bracelet, and necklace to help Han Tian put them on. Han Tian looked at her reflection in the mirror, which was as bright as the stars. Her beautiful eyes could not help but become moist. She did not care that the salesperson was still beside her. She threw herself into Lin Fan's arms and said excitedly, "Lin Fan, thank you." In fact, the salesperson was not in the mood to look at her at all. It was because the salesperson was also very excited. 4,888,888 yuan worth of jewelry. She sold it directly. How much commission could she get from this? Lin Fan gently patted Han Tian's back and smiled. "Silly girl, what's there to think between us? Moreover, this is just a small toy." A small toy. That was right. To Lin Fan, an item worth over 4 million yuan was nothing. One had to know that even if he only counted his income from breathing, sleeping, and walking, he could earn at least 7 million yuan a day. After a while, the two of them slowly separated. The salesperson gradually came back to her senses. She pointed at some small items under 5,000 yuan on the counter and said, "You can choose something you like as a gift from our shop." In the end, Han Tian picked up a cute hair clip. After Lin Fan and Han Tian left Cartier, a few salespeople quickly surrounded the salesperson from earlier. "Xiao Huan, you're amazing." "Xiao Huan, congratulations on selling Galaxy. You must treat us." "That's right." Lin Fan naturally did not care about the bustling Cartier store. He accompanied Han Tian to buy 2 pairs of shoes and some skincare products. He spent a total of 5,688,993 yuan on this trip. Correspondingly, Lin Fan received 568 red packets. When Han Tian went to the washroom, Lin Fan was bored and chose to open all 568 red packets. "Ding, congratulations, you've received 5 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 1,999 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained Happy World Amusement Park. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a 1 yuan critical hit card." Out of the 568 red packets, Lin Fan received a total of 432,113 yuan, Happy World Amusement Park, and a 1 yuan critical hit card. Seeing this, Lin Fan could not help but reveal a strange look. 430,000 yuan was naturally not a big deal. Happy World Amusement Park. Was this not the largest amusement park in the central region that had been publicized for the past few years? It was claimed to have cost tens of billions to build. Now it was his. The 1 yuan critical hit card allowed him to earn 100 million yuan by spending 1 yuan. In other words, he had just bought so many things for Han Tian, and in the end, he earned this much money. At this moment, Han Tian walked over with a face full of happiness. She seemed to have noticed the change in Lin Fan's expression and asked, "What happened to you?" Lin Fan cleared his throat and smiled. "I encountered something interesting." Then he looked at the watch on his wrist and said, "It's almost time for us to go to dinner. I might have to eat with some people later." "All right," Han Tian said. Hence, Lin Fan drove the Mercedes-Benz G-Class toward Imperial Hotel. The chairman of Little Tanuki Group, President Ma, had arranged to have a meal with him here. Lin Fan parked the car and walked to the entrance of the Imperial Hotel. A man in a suit and leather shoes walked out and shouted in surprise, "Han Tian." "Wang Zihao," Han Tian said. Wang Zihao looked at Han Tian's beautiful face, and a hint of passion appeared on his face. However, he quickly suppressed it and smiled. "Haha, Han Tian, it really is you. I didn't expect that we would meet here today. We haven't seen each other for a few years since we graduated from university, right? You haven't changed at all." "Well, no, you've become younger and more beautiful than before." "You're exaggerating," Han Tian said. "How is it exaggerated? This is the truth," Wang Zihao said seriously. Wang Zihao seemed to have noticed Lin Fan standing at the side and asked, "Oh right, who is this?" Lin Fan said, "I'm Han Tian's boyfriend, Lin Fan." Wang Zihao's expression darkened slightly and he said, "I didn't expect the campus belle of our school to already have a boyfriend. By the way, where are you working now?" "I'm studying at Jiangbei University," Lin Fan said. When Wang Zihao heard this, a hint of contempt flashed across his face. In the eyes of some ordinary people, university students were very impressive. However, in Wang Zihao's eyes, university students were nothing. "So, you're a student from Jiangbei University," he said. "Speaking of being a student, I couldn't help but think of the time when Han Tian managed the student council in school. At that time, I was wondering why there was such a perfect person like Han Tian in this world. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also so capable. By the way, I started an internet company after graduation. I'm currently lacking a vice president. Han Tian, are you willing to work with me?" Han Tian shook her head. I'm sorry, I've been working in a real estate company since I graduated. I don't know anything about internet companies. I'm afraid I can't be your vice president. It doesn't matter. In fact, most of the things in my internet company are done by the contracting companies. We're just a shell, Wang Zihao said. As the vice president, you just need to assign tasks to the various companies. With your management skills back in university, this will definitely not be a problem. Then he said to Lin Fan, the jewelry on Han Tian's body should be from you, right? I know that you want to make Han Tian look beautiful and make her the most eye-catching woman in the crowd. But do you know that wearing all this glass jewelry won't make her beautiful at all? On the contrary, it'll only make her be seen as a joke. Only when she wears a 1-carat diamond will she be amazing. Obviously, Wang Zihao thought that the necklace, bracelet, and earrings Han Tian was wearing were all made of glass. It was no wonder that he thought so. After all, Han Tian had just said that she worked in a real estate company. How much money could she earn from working in a real estate company? How could she afford diamond jewelry? Lin Fan was just a student, so it was even more impossible for him to afford diamond jewelry. Even if he was a rich second-generation heir, it was still not okay. Wang Zihao knew very well that the families of rich second-generation heirs were very strict. It was impossible for these heirs to have enough allowance to buy expensive jewelry all at once. The answer was obvious. Wang Zihao said again, I'm sorry, maybe I was a little too direct. However, it's the truth. Without a career, how can love last? Lin Fan, you're a university student, so you should understand this. If you really like Han Tian and want her to be happy forever, I think you should persuade her to come to our company to be the vice president. After you graduate, you can also come to work in my company. In this way, I believe that you'll be able to make your love last. As for the scale and strength of my company as well as your treatment, there's no need to doubt it. You might not know this, but I've just received an investment from Little Tanuki Group. In the future, even a share listing will be possible. At that time, you'll all be shareholders of the company. You can achieve financial freedom and live happily ever after. Wang Zihao used the tone of an elder to talk about great principles. He believed that Lin Fan would definitely do as he said and help persuade Han Tian to join his company. It was because Wang Zihao had used similar methods to successfully have sex with several women. In the end, even if he abandoned them, they never blamed him. On the contrary, they often felt heartache and regret for certain things. Even a meticulous woman was like that. Moreover, Lin Fan was just an ordinary male university student. At this moment, Lin Fan's face was filled with a strange expression. The jewelry that Han Tian was wearing now was being laughed at. Only by wearing a 1-carat diamond would a woman be able to impress others. If he remembered correctly, never mind the necklace and bracelet, Han Tian's earrings were made with 2-carat diamonds, right? Her diamonds were being laughed at. The little diamonds were also looked down on. What kind of logic was this? Also, he wanted both her and Han Tian to work in his company. They should not worry about the treatment. Was he prepared to give her 1 million or 5 million a month? However, even 10 million was nothing. His company received an investment from Little Tanuki. He owned 10% of the shares of Little Tanuki Group and was also the second largest shareholder of Little Tanuki Group. In other words, Lin Fan's company had invested in Wang Zihao's company. Wang Zihao saw that Lin Fan and Han Tian did not say anything and thought that they were considering his words. He could not help but laugh coldly in his heart. He then continued, my internet company is short of people. This is definitely a great opportunity for you. You don't have to think about it anymore. At this moment, a noblewoman in a Chanel dress who had about 80 points in appearance suddenly exclaimed, wow, Galaxy, this is Cartier's Galaxy, right? I just saw it in a magazine. I didn't expect to see the real thing so quickly. It's too beautiful. Excuse me, can you tell me where you bought it? The lady continued. Of course, Han Tian replied. I bought it at the Cartier flagship store in Xinglong shopping mall, but they only had this set. Only one set, the lady said disappointedly. She then said, I really like Galaxy. Can you sell it to me? How about 5 million? Clearly, this lady had a certain understanding of Galaxy. Galaxy's price was 4,888,888 yuan, while the lady offered 5 million yuan. Han Tian could almost make 110,000 yuan just by selling it. If it was an ordinary person, they would probably agree immediately. However, Han Tian shook her head and said, "I'm sorry, I also like Galaxy very much, so I won't consider selling it." When Wang Zihao heard the name Cartier, he felt that something was wrong. When he heard the figure of 5 million, his heart thumped wildly. What was going on? Was the jewelry Han Tian was wearing not made of glass? Why would others spend 5 million to buy it? What was going on? Wang Zihao opened his mouth as if he wanted to ask something. At this moment behind him, a somewhat familiar voice sounded. "Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to have made you wait." Wang Zihao slowly turned around to look. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. That was because he saw a group of big shots from Little Tanuki Group. They had just reviewed his company in the conference hall of the Imperial Hotel. Among them was the chairman of Little Tanuki Group, President Ma. The voice just now came from President Ma. At this moment, President Ma actually took the initiative to stretch out his right hand and tightly shake Lin Fan's hand. This. What was going on? That was President Ma. Why did he shake hands with Lin Fan? Moreover, from his tone, it seemed like he was here to pick Lin Fan up. How was this possible? Could it be that he was seeing things? Or perhaps was it an illusion? However, Wang Zihao quickly realized that this was not a hallucination, nor was it an illusion. "I just arrived," Lin Fan pointed at Han Tian and said, "This is my girlfriend, Han Tian." "Oh, is this sister-in-law? How beautiful, Brother Lin, you have good taste," President Ma praised and extended his right hand to Han Tian. Han Tian knew that they were going to have dinner with other people today. However, she never expected it to be President Ma. As a result, when she suddenly saw President Ma, she was stunned. One had to know. In the hearts of many managers and businessmen, President Ma was definitely a godlike existence. At this moment, the god had appeared in front of her. He was even shaking hands with her. After a while, Han Tian extended her right hand and shook President Ma's hand. Then, Lin Fan and the manager of the Imperial Hotel stood at the entrance and chatted for a while. At this moment, Lin Fan seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and said, "By the way, President Ma, Wang Zihao seems to be the boss of an internet company. Is our Little Tanuki Group going to invest in his company? But he just said that his company is an empty shell and they contract out the work to third-party companies." "What, really?" President Ma said. Lin Fan smiled. "That's not all, he even wanted my girlfriend to be his vice president." President Ma raised his eyebrows, and his expression instantly became extremely ugly. How smart was he? How could he not understand what Lin Fan meant? This person called Wang Zihao had opened a shell company, and they had actually wanted to invest in him just now. More importantly, he actually had improper thoughts about Lin Fan's girlfriend. What a bastard! One had to know. The reason why President Ma came to Jiangbei was to build a better relationship with Lin Fan. Now something like this had happened. If this ruined Lin Fan's good mood. In fact, it might even cause some unnecessary conflicts. Wang Zihao really deserved to die. President Ma said to his assistant standing behind him, "Cancel all cooperation and investments with this Wang Zihao. In addition, issue a notice that Wang Zihao's character is extremely bad. From today onward, anyone who has business dealings with him will no longer be able to cooperate with us." Little Tanuki Group was canceling all cooperation and investments with him. Heavens! How much effort had he put in to get Little Tanuki Group to invest in his company? Now there was nothing left. In addition, Little Tanuki Group was going to inform the outside world that it would not cooperate with anyone who had business dealings with them. Was this not equivalent to being completely banned by Little Tanuki Group? This. Wang Zihao only felt his vision turn black. His legs went weak as he knelt on the ground. He first said to President Ma, "President Ma, I beg you, please don't ban me." However, President Ma completely ignored his words. Then Wang Zihao seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and kowtowed to Lin Fan while crying, "Lin, Mr. Lin, I'm sorry. It was my fault just now. I shouldn't have said anything. On the account that Han Tian and I were university classmates, please forgive me. I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Lin Fan said calmly, "What are you sorry for?" Then he held Han Tian's slender hand and said, "President Ma, didn't you say you wanted to treat me to a meal? I'm starving here." "Yes, yes, yes, let's eat, Mr. Lin, Ms. Han." "Please come in." President Ma was like a waiter. He personally stretched out his hand and led Lin Fan and Han Tian inside. This scene. Everyone's hearts started to race as they started to guess Lin Fan's identity. One had to know President Ma was a man who had become the richest man in the country several times. He actually treated a young man so politely. The group of senior executives of Little Tanuki Group standing behind President Ma could not help but bow slightly towards Lin Fan. They followed closely behind him like his lackeys. After Lin Fan, Han Tian, President Ma, and the senior executives of Little Tanuki Group left, Wang Zihao collapsed to the ground dejectedly and said in a hoarse voice, "Who is he?" In VIP Hall 6 on the 66th floor of the Imperial Hotel, a huge dining table was filled with sumptuous dishes. At President Ma's request, Lin Fan sat on the main seat, Han Tian sat on the left, and President Ma sat on the right. The other executives sat around the table. "Today, I'm very happy to be able to have dinner with Mr. Lin and Ms. Han. I'd like to propose a toast to the two of you." Lin Fan and Han Tian also raised their glasses and said, "President Ma, you're too polite. Let's have a drink together." After a glass of wine, the atmosphere in the private room immediately became lively. In people's imagination, a wealthy person like President Ma should have an imposing aura that made people afraid to approach him. However, President Ma would occasionally put his arm around Lin Fan's shoulder and laugh heartily at other times. His appearance was no different from that of an ordinary commoner. He was very approachable. After downing a few glasses of wine, President Ma's pupils shifted, and he finally spoke of the true purpose of this trip. "Mr. Lin, thank you very much for your trust and recognition of our Little Tanuki Group. A few days ago you bought another 5% of our shares. Now, you're the biggest shareholder of our Little Tanuki Group in Hua Nation. I wonder if you have any instructions." As soon as he said this, the private room, which was originally a little lively, immediately quieted down. The senior executives of Little Tanuki Group finally understood why Dum Ma was so polite to Lin Fan. He bought an extra 5% of Little Tanuki's shares. He was the largest shareholder of Little Tanuki Group in Hua Nation. They were very clear about the market value of Little Tanuki Group. To achieve this step, how much money was needed. This young man in front of them he was actually so terrifying. Han Tian was also slightly stunned when she heard his words. She knew that Lin Fan was rich, but she did not expect him to be this rich. Lin Fan had already expected President Ma's words. He could not help but laugh. "I do approve of Little Tanuki Group, but at the same time I'm also a person who hates being troubled. So, it'll still be the same as before. I'll only take the dividends and I don't care about the matters of Little Tanuki Group. President Ma, I believe that you'll definitely be able to make Little Tanuki better and better." Ma laughed heartily when he heard that. He had achieved his goal this time. Instantly, the atmosphere in the private room became even hotter. The meal lasted until close to 3 o'clock before it slowly ended. President Ma and Little Tanuki Group's higher-ups had been to many drinking parties, and it could be said that they were all huge drinkers. However, when the banquet ended, everyone was lying on the table. Lin Fan had drinking gentlemen, so he would not get drunk even after 1,000 glasses. He was fine. However, Han Tian still insisted on helping him into the car and heading home. Perhaps it was because there was no one at home, it was a little boring. Looking at Lin Fan's handsome face, Han Tian's pretty face gradually blushed. Then she could not help but move closer to Lin Fan. "Oh epsilon. 3 epsilon. Letter 2C9, letter 2C9. It was as if a spring breeze had suddenly come, and thousands of pear trees had bloomed. Thus, the entire building began to shake from the afternoon until the next morning. Lin Fan accompanied Han Tian for breakfast before driving the Mercedes-Benz G-Class toward Jiangbei University. When he walked into Jiangbei University, he was greeted by a series of bright banners. Warm congratulations to our school's Lin Fan for solving the Hale conjecture. Warm congratulations on Lin Fan's thesis being published in Annual Mathematics. Lin Fan was stunned for a moment. After a while, he remembered that he had indeed solved the Hale conjecture last week. Then he asked Teacher Tianxian to publish it under her name. It seemed that Teacher Tianxian published it under his name. Regarding this, Lin Fan did not mind and walked straight toward the classroom. At this moment, the classroom was already filled with discussions. Did you see that? Brother Lin Fan's thesis was published in Annual Mathematics. Is the main point about Annual Mathematics? The main point is the Hale conjecture. Oh my God, Brother Lin Fan has solved another world problem. Just how on earth did Brother Lin Fan get so smart? When Lin Fan walked into the classroom, all the noise suddenly disappeared. Everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Fan. Seeing this, Lin Fan was stunned for a moment and thought, did I enter the wrong classroom? Then he could not help but look back at the classroom door. He was at the right place. At this moment, Song Yi, who was sitting in the back row, stood up and waved at Lin Fan. Brother Lin Fan, over here. Lin Fan heard the voice and walked over slowly. Then Song Yi could not help but ask, Brother Lin Fan, you solved the Hale conjecture. Yes, I did, Lin Fan replied casually. As soon as he said this, the classroom immediately became extremely noisy again. As expected of Brother Lin Fan. Brother Lin Fan is awesome. Long live Brother Lin Fan. In fact, the students had indeed wondered if the Lin Fan on the school banner was the Lin Fan in their class. However, doubts were just that after all. Now that Lin Fan had personally admitted it, how could they not be excited? As for Lin Fan, his expression remained the same. There was no change at all. He could not help but yawn. Brother Lin Fan, when did you start researching the Hale conjecture? Ma Zhang asked. Last week, Lin Fan said. Last week. Ma Zhang opened his mouth, not knowing how to answer. He researched it last week and solved it this week. That was an unsolved problem in the world. However, what he did not know was that Lin Fan had written the answer to the problem on the same day he started researching it. If Ma Zhang knew, what kind of expression would he have? After the bell rang, the old professor with gray hair slowly walked in. He first scanned the students in the classroom. When he saw Lin Fan, his gaze could not help but linger for a few seconds. However, he did not talk about anything else and started today's class. Lin Fan was already a little sleepy. Now that he was listening to the old professor's leisurely pace, the lecture was like a lullaby. After a few minutes, he closed his eyes and fell asleep on the table. He was relaxed and comfortable. When the old professor's gaze landed on the sleeping Lin Fan, not only was the old professor not angry, but his turbid eyes were also filled with admiration. As expected of Lin Fan, even though he had just solved the Hale conjecture, he had studied all night yesterday. However, he was not sure what Lin Fan was studying this time. At this moment, a gentle breeze blew across the table, causing the books on the table to rustle. Hence, the old professor slowly walked down from the podium and skillfully put his coat on Lin Fan. He could not let a good student who studied every night catch a cold. 275 The lively mathematics world, overturned. While Lin Fan was sleeping, the mathematics world that had been silent for a long time suddenly became noisy. Thank you, readers. International Mathematics Forum. Hang hung tool, I just woke up and suddenly heard someone say that the Hale conjecture has been solved. Am I dreaming, or have I been sleeping for decades? Brother Jiang, congratulations on reaching the year 2050. Dream God, heavens, my mentor and I have been studying the Hale conjecture for a few years. Recently we finally made some progress, but now it's been solved. Happy, has anyone finished reading the Hale conjecture thesis? Golden Goldfish finished reading. After reading a few pages I was stunned. Huan Zufei stunned +1. Liang Sansui, I remember that Lin Fan solved Zhou's conjecture and the twin prime number conjecture previously, right? 5 elements lacking money, prodigy powerhouses are so terrifying. Bo, the Fields Award is going to be held soon. Do you think he'll win the award? Come and go, that shouldn't be a problem for him. Princeton University, America. Adavan wanted to bury his head in annual mathematics. Take your time, Jeffrey said with a smile. Adavan ignored Jeffrey and muttered to himself, it's actually like this. He could actually use this method to calculate. Jeffrey seemed to enjoy seeing Adavan like this, and the smile on his face widened. After a long time, Adavan slowly moved his gaze away from the magazine and praised, this mathematician from Hua Nation is really amazing. His name is Lin Fan, right? After solving such an important problem, when do you think he'll hold a report? Jeffrey said that depends on the World Mathematics Organization. It's just that, I wonder if Lin Fan will host the report in Hua Nation again. In fact, just as Jeffrey had expected, after the World Mathematics Organization found out that the Hale conjecture was solved, they sent an email directly to Jiangbei University, hoping that Lin Fan could come to Europe to hold a 60-minute report. As for the main character of this matter, Lin Fan, he was still sleeping soundly on the table. After the school bell rang, Lin Fan slowly opened his eyes. When Lin Fan walked out of the classroom feeling refreshed, Counselor Sun Yaedong, the dean of the mathematics department, Hu Qiuwen, and the others were all standing at the door. Lin Fan, congratulations on solving the Hale conjecture, Hu Qiuwen said with a smile. Lin Fan looked like he was still half asleep. He waved his hand and said, it's just a question. His tone was so relaxed as if he had only answered a simple question like 1 + 1 = 2. After saying that, Lin Fan prepared to continue walking out. Hu Qiuwen did not dare to hesitate any longer. He quickly said, the World Mathematics Organization sent an email inviting you to Europe to hold a 60-minute report on the Hale conjecture. Lin Fan pursed his lips and asked, why is it another report? Tell them to come to Jiangbei if they want to attend the report. Then he did not say anything else and walked straight into the distance. The entire Jiangbei University and the entire mathematics community, they were all discussing Lin Fan solving the Hale conjecture today. As for Lin Fan himself, he was still the same as before. He ate and slept as he should. There was no difference at all. After school ended in the afternoon, Lin Fan drove the Mercedes-Benz G-Class toward Coiling Dragon Villa. In the distance, there was a violent roar of engines. 2 cars were actually speeding down the street. The Land Rover in front seemed to be escaping, while the Volkswagen behind seemed to be chasing. At this moment, a child suddenly appeared in front of the Volkswagen. In order to avoid danger, the Volkswagen suddenly turned the steering wheel and slammed on the brakes. However, the speed was too fast and the car could not stop at all. It crashed into the green belt beside it and the entire car overturned on the ground. Seeing this, many people followed and watched from afar. Lin Fan stepped on the accelerator and arrived beside the Volkswagen. It was not that he wanted to watch the show but that he knew the owner of the car, Wang Ru. This was a woman with a strong sense of justice. Not long ago, Lin Fan encountered an attempted robbery while carrying out an order on Dai Dai. She was the one who saved him. Of course, even without her, Lin Fan, who had violent aesthetics, would not have let the criminal succeed. However, it was this incident that gave Lin Fan a good impression of this beautiful woman. Now seeing her car overturned, Lin Fan naturally went to take a look. At the same time he thought to himself, could she have been chasing a criminal just now? At this time the door of the overturned Volkswagen slowly opened, and Wang Ru climbed out with some difficulty. Are you all right? Lin Fan asked. Wang Ru was stunned when she saw him. Clearly, she had not expected to meet Lin Fan here. Then Wang Ru's eyes fell on the Mercedes-Benz G next to her. She took out her ID and said anxiously, I'm investigating a case. Let me borrow your car. As she spoke, she was about to head toward the Mercedes-Benz. However, she seemed to have hurt her leg after the car overturned and she was limping. Lin Fan shook his head, let me drive. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward to the driver's seat. Wang Ru did not hesitate too much. She sat in the passenger seat and said, "Hurry up." Then she looked straight ahead and took out her phone to make a call. "My car got into an accident on Southeast Street. Help me deal with it." After saying that, she hung up the phone and made a second call. He should be heading toward Route 107. Get someone to stop him in front. At this moment, Lin Fan had already started the car and stepped on the accelerator. In an instant, the entire car was like a roaring beast, letting out an earth-shattering roar. Then the speed of the Mercedes-Benz GG continued to increase. 100 yards, 120 yards, 150 yards. Seeing this, even Wang Ru, who had always been calm and collected, could not help but have a layer of cold sweat on her forehead. "Mr. Lin, be careful." It was no wonder that she would be like this. One had to know that this was not a highway but a city road. On the city road, if there was a traffic jam or something happened at this speed, it would not be as simple as the car getting flipped, it would be a total crash. "All right," Lin Fan replied. As a result, he stepped on the accelerator harder. 160 yards. 170 yards. Wang Ru's eyebrows twitched slightly. She had asked him to be careful, yet this was how was being careful. 276 hidden mission, metal. Wang Ru saw that the car did not slow down, instead it kept going faster. Thank you, readers. The cars and trees outside the window were like a rapid river that kept flowing backward. She finally could not help but speak again. "Mr. Lin, slow down." Lin Fan tilted his head and looked at Wang Ru with a strange gaze. That appearance, it was as if he was saying, "Didn't you tell me to be as fast as possible? Aren't you chasing after a criminal?" Wang Ru seemed to have realized this and continued, "Safety first. In addition, my colleague has already." At this moment, Lin Fan suddenly said, "We've caught up." Sure enough, there was a car speeding ahead. It was that Land Rover. The man in the Land Rover, he seemed to have noticed the Mercedes-Benz G-Class that was speeding toward him. He could not help but step harder on the accelerator and increase his speed again. However, he soon found out that no matter how much he increased his speed, the Mercedes-Benz G-Class kept closing the distance between them. The man looked at his speed of 130 km/h and cursed, "Is the driver crazy?" However, the distance between the two did not increase because of this curse. On the contrary, the car behind was getting closer and closer. Just as the man was about to be caught, he coincidentally encountered a relatively narrow fork. Without any hesitation, he turned the steering wheel and drove into the fork at the risk of almost flipping over. "You're very fast, aren't you?" the man grinned. "Let's see how you're going to catch up." In fact, it was not just the man who had this kind of mentality. Wang Ru, who was sitting in Lin Fan's car, also had the same thoughts. Wang Ru sighed and said, "It's over, we can't catch up." However, Lin Fan said calmly, "Sit tight." Wang Ru seemed to have thought of something. Her heart tightened and she quickly opened her mouth to say something. However, it was too late. Lin Fan turned the steering wheel and stepped hard on the brakes. The tires of the Mercedes-Benz G-Class revolved at high speed, causing a plume of smoke to appear as the tires rubbed against the ground. The screeching sound of the brakes echoed throughout the entire street. Wang Ru only felt a huge inertia force that seemed to drag her out. Fortunately, she had fastened her seat belt and her reaction was quick. She grabbed the armrest with one hand and was able to sit up with difficulty. At this moment, the Mercedes-Benz's two tires had already levitated, and it spun 450 degrees on the ground with just the remaining two tires. After the sound of a heavy object landing on the ground, the Mercedes-Benz G-Class let out a hurried roar again. Like a ferocious beast, it sped in the direction of the Land Rover. The man sitting in the Land Rover was almost dumbfounded by what he saw through the rearview mirror. He shouted, "F***CK, that driver can drift too." It was also because of this that he was dumbfounded. He was careless and accidentally knocked into a big tree on the road. The airbag popped out and a wisp of black smoke gradually emerged from the vehicle. When the man slowly got out of the Land Rover, the Mercedes-Benz G had already stopped steadily beside him. Lin Fan and the wobbling Wang Ru got out of the car. The man composed himself and took out a switchblade. Don't come over. However, Lin Fan did not seem to hear him at all as he slowly walked toward the man. When he was only 1 meter away from the man finally shouted and stabbed toward Lin Fan. Lin Fan's body swayed slightly, and he easily dodged the flick blade. Then Lin Fan grabbed the man's right hand that was holding the switchblade and twisted it gently. At the same time, Lin Fan kicked twice. 3 crisp sounds appeared almost at the same time. The man's arm, left leg, and right leg were all dislocated. He fell to the ground and screamed in pain. He lost all ability to resist. Seeing this, Wang Ru's pale face showed a touch of surprise. She could not help but say, You're that powerful, then why were you robbed at that time? Lin Fan shrugged his shoulders. I wanted to resist too, but you just happened to appear. Wang Ru opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something. At this moment, the sound of a police vehicle's siren sounded in the distance. Your colleague seems to be here, Lin Fan said. I'll be leaving first. After all, he had only helped because he saw an acquaintance whom he had a good impression of getting into trouble. Now the problem of his acquaintance was already solved. Naturally, he did not have any reason to stay any longer. Otherwise, he might have to go to the police station to assist in the investigation later. That would be too troublesome. As for Lin Fan, he hated trouble. Then, without waiting for Wang Ru's reply, Lin Fan returned to the Mercedes-Benz and stepped on the accelerator. Wang Ru looked at the Mercedes-Benz G-Class that was quickly leaving, and a different color appeared in her beautiful eyes. At this moment, 2 police cars stopped at the side. Several investigators walked down one after another. One of them praised, Team Leader Wang, did you drive that Mercedes-Benz G-Class? You could even drift on the streets. That was too amazing. Sergeant Wang, are you injured? Another investigator asked. An investigator in his 30s looked at the switchblade on the ground and the man lying on the ground. He immediately guessed what had just happened. He said coldly, this guy actually wanted to attack Team Leader Wang. He really overestimated himself. Wang Ru shook her head. I didn't catch up with him and I didn't subdue him. All the investigators looked puzzled. The younger investigator could not help but ask, who then? Wang Ru slowly raised her head and looked in the direction of the Mercedes-Benz G-Class. She was speechless for a long time. When Lin Fan arrived at the Coiling Dragon Villa, a crisp notification sounded out in his mind. Ding, congratulations, you've completed the hidden mission. You've been rewarded with 5 silver packets. When Lin Fan heard that, he rubbed his nose and muttered, is this considered good karma? After a pause, he said, then let's see just how much good karma is there. Open the 5 silver packets. Ding, congratulations, you've received 500,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 200,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained Hayating Jiayuan Community. Ding, congratulations, you've received 300,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you have received 900,000 yuan. He received 1.9 million yuan from the 5 silver packets. Lin Fan did not take it to heart. He immediately focused his attention on Hayating Jiayuan Community. Hayating Jiayuan Community? I think I've seen it on a billboard before. It seems to be a high-end residential area in the city center that was completed this year. I meddled in a situation and got a residential area in the city center worth 1.9 million yuan. Not bad. 277 Huang Ling's friend, praise. Perhaps it was because he had done a good deed. Thank you, readers. It was nighttime. Lin Fan was sleeping soundly. When he woke up the next day, the sun had already risen high in the sky. Lin Fan picked up his phone and a message appeared on the screen. Notice from Merchant Bank, 7,520,014 yuan was deposited into your account. Lin Fan closed the message and looked at the time on the top right corner. It's already 10 a.m. It seems that class has already started. Forget it, I won't go today. Then he picked up his phone and sent a message to Counselor Sun Yaodong. In the past, Lin Fan had special rights in the school. Yesterday, Zhongbei University received news that Lin Fan had solved Hale conjecture. Lin Fan could now have even more special rights. Therefore, Sun Yaodong did not hesitate at all and directly approved his leave. Lin Fan took his time to wash up and leisurely ate a few slices of crab roe bread. Then, he drove the Mercedes-Benz G-Class and headed outside. When he stopped at an intersection, he happened to see Huang Ling on the sidewalk. Lin Fan turned the steering wheel and walked to the side. He shouted, "Huang Ling." Huang Ling turned around and shouted excitedly, "Lin Fan." Lin Fan smiled, "What are you doing, right? Isn't Ziqian with you?" In Lin Fan's impression, Huang Ling and Qiu Ziqian were inseparable. "She had something to do at home, so she went back," Huang Ling said. "A few of my high school friends are in Jiangbei. I'm going to meet them." "A class reunion?" asked Lin Fan. "Do you want me to go with you?" Lin Fan asked again. "Really, do you want to go?" Huang Ling was pleasantly surprised. Her beautiful eyes were faintly glowing. Initially, Huang Ling had chosen to follow Lin Fan because she envied Qiu Ziqian's life. However, her envy gradually turned into deep love. Lin Fan smiled, "Where are you guys meeting?" "Finglai Hotel in front," Huang Ling hurriedly said. In a private room at Finglai Hotel. Three women sat together and chatted casually. They would laugh from time to time. The atmosphere was very relaxed. At this moment, someone knocked on the door. Then Huang Ling and Lin Fan pushed the door open and walked in. "You're Huang Ling?" the woman in the beige windbreaker asked. Huang Ling nodded at first, then said hesitantly, "Zhou Lan." "Wow, it really is you, Huang Ling," the three of them cried out in surprise. Instantly, the atmosphere in the private room became even more intense. Lin Fan secretly observed the three of them. He realized that they were well-dressed and had good looks. At least they scored 70 points in appearance. A beautiful woman would always have beautiful friends. In fact, when Lin Fan was observing them, the three women were also observing Lin Fan. They all realized that Lin Fan was tall and had a refined aura. His facial features were well-defined. He was simply a rare handsome man. Finally, Zhou Lan could not help but ask, "Huang Ling, who's this handsome guy next to you? Why didn't you introduce us?" "I'm Huang Ling's boyfriend, Lin Fan," Lin Fan introduced himself. Immediately, the three of them began to tease. "I didn't expect our class Bill to have a boyfriend now. But Huang Ling has good taste. A handsome man paired with a beautiful woman, what a splendid sight." When Huang Lingyan heard this, her face blushed slightly. Her eyes were filled with happiness and sweetness. At this moment, the door was pushed open again. A woman in a Balenciaga dress with heavy makeup and a Gucci bag on her waist strolled in with a beer-bellied man. Everyone in the private room could not help but look at the door. However, no matter how they looked at the woman, they did not find her familiar at all. The same went for the man with the beer belly. Zhou Lan could not help but ask, "You're—" "I'm Su Lihua," said the woman with heavy makeup. "You're Su Lihua?" Zhou Lan asked in surprise. The other people in the private room also let out a wave of incredulous sounds. "Lihua, you've changed a lot. I almost didn't recognize you at all." "It looks like it's worth it to spend tens of thousands of yuan on cosmetics every month," Su Lihua said proudly. In Su Lihua's eyes, if everyone said that she had changed a lot, then she must have become more beautiful. Of course, more importantly, she had to tell them that she used cosmetics that cost tens of thousands of yuan every month. Then Su Lihua scanned the room. When she saw Huang Ling, her heavily made-up face flashed with anger. In high school, Huang Ling was the most beautiful girl in class. She had excellent grades too. Therefore, whether it was the teachers or the students, especially the male students, they were all very good to her. This made Su Lihua very jealous. In Su Lihua's opinion, if it were not for Huang Ling, everything she had would have belonged to her. She should be the woman who was praised by all. At this moment, Su Lihua noticed Lin Fan. Her face flashed with surprise as she asked, "This is—" Zhou Lan introduced, "This is Lin Fan, Huang Ling's boyfriend. Isn't he handsome?" Huang Ling's boyfriend. Why? Why was her boyfriend so handsome? The surprise on Su Lihua's face disappeared and was replaced by jealousy and hatred. "Not only is he handsome, but he's also very young," the woman beside him immediately praised. "He looks like a student." "I'm indeed a student," Lin Fan said with a smile. "I'm studying at Jiangbei University." everyone in the room became even more excited. Heavens, he really is a student. Su Lihua snorted lightly. She fiddled with the LV bag in her hand and said, "So, you're a student. Zhongbei University is all right. Huang Ling, if he graduates in the future, he can join my husband's company. Since we're former classmates, it's not a problem to offer him a salary of 18,000 yuan." After a pause, Su Lihua said to the few people beside her, "You guys too, if you have any relatives or friends looking for a job, you can have them join my husband's company." Really, Zhou Lan and the others were pleasantly surprised. When Su Lihua's husband, Zhang Jianbo, walked into the room, he was immediately attracted by Huang Ling's appearance. At this moment, after he heard everyone's conversation, his eyes shifted slightly as he smiled casually. "Of course, it's true. Although I run a construction company, I want talents from all kinds of backgrounds, including human resources, accounting, management, security, drivers, construction, design, media, and so on. You're all Lihua's classmates, so you'll be treated well. By the way, do any of you want houses in the school district of Second Primary School?" When Zhou Lan and the others heard this, they were all extremely excited. That's 278 assist, too funny. One had to know. The two things that people from Hua Nation were most concerned about were housing in the school district and work. At this moment, Zhang Jianbo could easily help everyone solve those concerns. How could they not be excited? Zhang Jianbo had his own reasons for saying this. In his opinion, he was showing off the huge scale and ability of his company. Huang Ling, this beauty, must be worshipping him now. When he had the chance to find a way to contact her, he would definitely be able to get his hands on her quickly. Zhang Jianbo had done similar things many times, so he was very familiar with these methods. Su Lihua raised her head like a proud white swan and said, "Heiyading Jiayuan community is next to Second Primary School. You guys should have heard of it before, right? The houses in the residential area are luxurious, and the exquisite decorations inside will be done by my husband's company. My husband is very familiar with the boss of the developer of Heiyading Jiayuan community. If you want a house in the school district, just go over and tell them my husband's name." As soon as she said that, the private room became even livelier. "I'm planning to buy a house, Lihua. I'll have to trouble you. I want to buy a house too. Heiyading Jiayuan community. There seem to be more than 1,000 houses in this community. Wouldn't the renovation of all the houses cost tens of millions? Lihua, your husband is amazing. Tens of millions, oh my god." Su Lihua looked at everyone's admiring gazes, and her face was full of pride. However, she still said in a calm tone, "Have you heard of Heiyading Building?" Zhou Lan immediately said, "I do. It's a very tall building by the river." "Yes," Su Lihua nodded. "The renovation of that building will also be done by my husband's company." Everyone exclaimed again. "Heavens, such a tall building was actually renovated by your husband's company. That project was probably worth more than 100 million yuan. 100 million yuan. Your husband is too strong. Lihua, you've really found a good husband." Su Lihua was so happy that she almost trembled when she heard everyone's envious voices. She glanced at Huang Ling. That look, it was as if she was saying, "So what if you found a young and handsome boyfriend? Compared to my husband, he's far inferior." "By the way, do you know about Happy World Amusement Park?" Su Lihua asked. "The Happy World Amusement Park in the North District," someone said. "If it's that, I've heard of it. It seems to be the largest amusement park in the central region. It cost tens of billions to build." "That's right, it's a big amusement park. I even said that I would bring my nephew there to play in the future. The basic facilities of this amusement park will be built by my husband's company," Su Lihua said. In an instant, the entire private room was in an uproar. "Oh my god. Your husband is really he's too powerful." First, it was Heiyading Jiayuan's exquisite renovation. Then, it was Heiyading Building. Now, it was Happy World Amusement Park. Everyone did not know how to praise Zhang Jianbo anymore. They looked at Su Lihua with envy and Zhang Jianbo with admiration. Lin Fan, who was standing at the side, had a weird look on his face. "Heiyading Jiayuan community. Heiyading Building. Happy World Amusement Park. These were they not all his properties? Zhang Jianbo did not expect Su Lihua to say all that. His company was indeed going to renovate Hayating Jiayuan community. However, it was not all of the houses, it was just for the renovation of one building. His company was indeed going to renovate Hayating building. However, it was not the entire building, just a few floors. His company was indeed going to build the basic facilities for Happy World Amusement Park, but it was just a few toilets. All the projects added up to an estimated tens of millions. From Su Lihua's words, it seemed like a super project worth billions. Zhang Jianbo secretly looked at Huang Ling beside him and realized that she seemed to be looking at him as well. He was delighted and secretly praised, "Wife, good assist." Thus, Zhang Jianbo acted as if he did not care and said, "Actually, I don't care about the projects at all. After all, I've already earned enough money. If it's possible, I'd rather not take on so many projects and have more free time to rest. However, the people in charge of these projects are my friends. If they insist on making me do it, I can't do anything about it." After saying that, he did not forget to look at Huang Ling again. It was as if he was saying, "Beauty, follow me, I'm rich." Zhang Jianbo's thoughts and Su Lihua's hostility toward Huang Ling could not escape Lin Fan's eyes. "What's your name?" he asked. "Zhang Jianbo?" Zhang Jianbo slowly turned his body, but his answer was directed at Huang Ling as if he was introducing himself to her. Lin Fan said calmly, "Zhang Jianbo, right? Since you don't want to do these projects, I'll help you reject them." After saying that, he picked up his phone and dialed the number of Zhang Kai, the general manager of Hayating Jiayuan community. When Lin Fan had obtained Hayating Jiayuan community, the other party had called him once with the excuse of reporting work. Naturally, Lin Fan did not listen to it seriously, he just casually said a few words to dismiss him. "Hello, Mr. Lin." At this moment, Zhang Kai's extremely respectful voice sounded as soon as the call was connected. "Did you hand over all the renovations to a man named Zhang Jianbo?" Lin Fan asked. "Our renovation works were handed over to several companies for renovation," Zhang Kai said. As he spoke, he was still flipping through the information. Soon, he continued, "Zhang Jianbo is renovating one of the houses. It's a 9-story bungalow, Mr. Lin. Lin Fan did not wait for Zhang Kai to finish and said directly, "Terminate the contract with him." Zhang Kai did not hesitate at all and said, "Yes, sir." After Lin Fan hung up, Su Lihua asked, "Huang Ling, who did your boyfriend call?" "The general manager of Hayating Jiayuan community. Didn't your husband say he doesn't want to do so many projects? I'll help him reduce his workload a little," Lin Fan said. "You called the general manager of Hayating Jiayuan community?" Su Lihua asked curiously. "Don't tell me you're the son of the owner of Hayating Jiayuan community." Lin Fan shook his head. "That's not the case. I'm the owner of Hayating Jiayuan. This is too funny. I'm the owner as you wish." If Lin Fan had said that he was the son of the owner of Hayating Jiayuan, Su Lihua would have believed him. However, Lin Fan actually said that he was the owner of Hayating Jiayuan. In Su Lihua's eyes, this was a joke. What a joke! One had to know. Hayating Jiayuan was the school district of second primary school in the city center. Lin Fan was just a student. As a student, could he be the owner of Hayating Jiayuan? This was impossible. Lin Fan ignored Su Lihua and made another call. This time, he called the general manager of Hayating building. "Hello, Mr. Lin, what can I do for you?" As soon as the call connected, the general manager's respectful voice sounded from the other end. Lin Fan said directly, "Immediately cancel all cooperation with Zhang Jianbo." The general manager did not know who Zhang Jianbo was, but he still said without hesitation, "Yes, sir." After Lin Fan hung up, Su Lihua asked, "Who did you call this time?" "The general manager of Hayating building," Lin Fan said. "Are you telling me that you're also the owner of Hayating building?" Su Lihua asked, trying hard not to laugh. Lin Fan nodded, "Yeah." "Ha ha ha." Su Lihua laughed so hard that she could not control herself. Beside her, Zhang Jianbo shook his head like an elder and said, I might need to remind you although Haeyating Jiayuan and Haeyating Building have similar names, the residential area and the building weren't built by the same company. What he meant was that the boss of these two properties was not the same person. He should not say that he was the owner of these two properties anymore. Then, she saw that Lin Fan was still holding his phone. It seemed like he wanted to continue making calls. She could not help but say again, "Are you going to say that you're the owner of Happy World Amusement Park?" "I'm indeed the owner of Happy World Amusement Park," Lin Fan said calmly. Su Lihua laughed so hard that her body trembled. Cracks appeared on her face that was covered with heavy makeup. The thick foundation fell on her clothes like snowflakes. "Is that so? Then hurry up and call Happy World Amusement Park to cancel the contract with my husband. It'll also make my husband feel a little more relaxed, ha ha ha." Lin Fan said, "As you wish." After saying that, he made another call. "Hello, Mr. Lin," a flattering voice came from the phone. Lin Fan said directly, "Terminate the contract with Zhang Jianbo." "All right." The call ended. When Su Lihua saw that Lin Fan had really gone to make a call, she laughed so hard that tears flowed out. Huang Ling, I finally understand why you chose him as your boyfriend. He must have told you that he's the CEO of many companies, right? Your boyfriend, really, he's really handsome and rich, ha ha ha." Su Lihua's laughter grew louder after she said the last sentence. Originally, Zhou Lan and the others had a good impression of Lin Fan. At this moment they could not help but shake their heads. They did not like people who bragged. As for Lin Fan, he bragged again and again. Su Lihua's husband just said that he had a partnership with Haeyating Jiayuan, Haeyating Building, and Happy World Amusement Park. Lin Fan just happened to be the owner of these three. Was there such a coincidence? Was he playing with them like a monkey? Zhou Lan finally could not help but say, "Lin Fan, don't joke around like this." Everyone treated Lin Fan's words as a joke. Except Huang Ling. She looked at Lin Fan in shock. Those properties were indeed famous, but as long as Lin Fan said it, it was true. She trusted Lin Fan unconditionally. At this moment Zhang Jianbo's phone rang urgently. He looked at the caller ID and his eyes lit up. He smiled and said, "What a coincidence! We were just talking about Haeyating Jiayuan and now the director of Haeyating Jiayuan is calling me. Everyone please be quiet." As Zhang Jianbo spoke, he deliberately waved the phone in his hand. He first glanced at Lin Fan with a mocking gaze, then his gaze landed on Huang Ling. That appearance, it was as if he was saying to Huang Ling, "Your boyfriend only knows how to brag while I'm the real rich man." Very soon the entire private room fell silent. Then Zhang Jianbo pressed the answer button and turned on the speaker. The next moment a roar came from the phone. "Zhang Jianbo, what the hell are you doing? I kindly gave you a small mansion in Haeyating Jiayuan to renovate, but is this how you repay me?" Zhang Jianbo was so frightened that his body trembled. He stuttered, "Director Wang, is there a misunderstanding?" "Misunderstanding? What seeking misunderstanding?" The owner of Haeyating Jiayuan personally called the general manager and said that he wants to cancel the contract with you. Tell me, what misunderstanding could there be? Damn it, if the higher-ups punish me, I definitely won't let you off easily. After saying that, Director Wang hung up the phone. The busy tone kept echoing in the private room. Zhang Jianbo, Su Lihua, Zhou Lan and the others seemed to have been immobilized. They did not move at all. The owner personally called the general manager and canceled the cooperation with Zhang Jianbo. When everyone heard these words, they felt that it was so familiar. Zhang Jianbo's throat moved, as if he wanted to say something. At this moment his phone rang again. The caller ID showed that it was Director Liu of Haeyating Building. Like before, Zhang Jianbo hurriedly answered the call. "Zhang Jianbo, CKU, how dare you offend the big boss of our Haeyating Building?" Director Liu shouted angrily. Zhang Jianbo's body trembled again and a thin layer of sweat seeped out of his forehead. He stuttered, "Director Liu, I did." "Mother of Seeker, the big boss just called the general manager. You've harmed my interests this time around. I'm telling you, if you can't satisfy the big boss, I'll definitely make you regret it." Director Liu shouted sternly. Then the other party hung up the phone again. The busy tone echoed in the private room once more. The owner of the building had called the general manager again. Zhang Jianbo, Su Lihua, Zhou Lan, and the others could not help but think of Lin Fan and his words. Everyone turned around slowly like puppets and looked at Lin Fan. Su Lihua could not help but burst into laughter. Haha, Huang Ling, your boyfriend is so funny. Did you hear that? He actually said that he called the general manager of Heiyading Jiayuan to ask him to cancel the cooperation with my husband. Moreover, he even said that he's the owner of Heiyading Jiayuan. This is too funny. 280 I will grant you your wish, the price. The sound of the bell broke the silence in the private room. Zhang Jianbo looked at the caller ID on the screen. It was Director Zhao of Happy World Amusement Park. He had a bad premonition. The phone rang in the private room for a long time. Finally, Zhang Jianbo reached out his trembling fingers and pressed the answer button. Immediately, another familiar roar resounded throughout the entire private room. Zhang Jianbo F***CK. I took pity on you and that's why I let you renovate the toilets in the amusement park, but what the hell did you do? Zhang Jianbo said in a panic, I. When Director Zhao heard his voice he was furious and shouted, You're *SS, you're so F***seeking bold, how dare you provoke the big shot of our Happy World Amusement Park? He personally called the general manager and told him to cancel all cooperation with you. Do you think this will end at just the cancellation of the cooperation? I'm telling you, this matter isn't over. The familiar busy tone echoed in the private room. At this moment, no matter how stupid everyone was, they understood that Zhang Jianbo was not contracted to do the renovation of all the houses in Heiyading Jiayuan, nor was he contracted to renovate all the floors of Heiyading building. Additionally, he was not responsible for all the facilities in Happy World Amusement Park. He had always been bragging. Lin Fan, on the other hand, did not joke around. He was really the owner of Heiyading Jiayuan, Heiyading Building, and Happy World Amusement Park. Zhang Jianbo recalled the words of the three directors and his entire body was drenched in sweat. He quickly bowed to Lin Fan and apologized, I'm sorry, please forgive me this time. His company only took on the renovation of a bungalow in Heiyading Jiayuan, the renovation of a few floors of Heiyading Building, and the renovation of a few toilets in Happy World Amusement Park. The total sum of all the projects was only tens of millions. However, they were very big projects for his company. For the sake of these projects, Zhang Jianbo sent a large number of gifts. 2 days ago, he recruited a new batch of employees and purchased a large number of materials. Zhang Jianbo would lose a large sum of money. It was already unbearable for Zhang Jianbo. In addition, the directors of these three companies were going to look for trouble with him. These three directors were definitely big shots in the industry. Any one of them could suppress Zhang Jianbo until there was nothing he could do. Now the three of them would be attacking at the same time. The consequence is, just thinking about it made Zhang Jianbo tremble. Su Lihua did not expect Lin Fan to be the owner of Heiyading Jiayuan, Heiyading Building, and Happy World Amusement Park. She roared angrily in her heart, why is Huang Ling's boyfriend so young and handsome? Moreover, he's a super tycoon. God, are you blind? However, Su Lihua said, Lin Fan, we were just joking. Why did you take it seriously? How could Su Lihua's expression escape Lin Fan's eyes? What do you mean? He asked lightly. I just want you and your husband to get what you want. Don't worry, I'll let your husband rest well. Then Lin Fan said to Huang Ling, I don't think I've ever gone shopping or eaten with you alone. Why don't we do it today? Huang Ling's beautiful eyes lit up immediately. She nodded and said, all right. Although her gathering with her high school classmates had not started yet, how could a mere gathering compare to shopping and eating with Lin Fan? Hence, Lin Fan held Huang Ling's slender waist and prepared to walk out. Su Lihua could not help but feel a little anxious. She shouted, Huang Ling, our gathering hasn't started yet. We were high school classmates, you have to help me persuade your boyfriend. However, Huang Ling did not care about her at all. She continued to walk out with Lin Fan. In fact, Huang Ling did not pay much attention to this gathering. After all, they were not particularly close in high school. Moreover, after so many years, they had almost become strangers. As for helping to persuade Lin Fan, it was even more impossible for Huang Ling to do that. That was because as long as Lin Fan had decided on something, she would not go against him. Furthermore, Su Lihua had mocked Lin Fan earlier, taunting Lin Fan. Well, she had to pay the price now. Lin Fan and Huang Ling quickly walked out of the room and disappeared from everyone's sight. At this moment, Zhang Jianbo's phone rang again. Boss, this is bad. The construction sites that we used to work with have all chased us out. In addition, the bosses of the places we got the bricks, cement, sand, and other materials from have all come to collect debts. Zhang Jianbo's body went limp and his phone fell to the ground. He slumped on the chair, his face pale. He said dejectedly, "It's over." Lin Fan and Huang Ling did not care about what happened after that. Just as Lin Fan sat in the Mercedes-Benz, his phone in his pocket vibrated. 1200. The red packets were here. Ding, congratulations, you've received 5 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 1,999 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 55 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 18,888 yuan. Lin Fan clicked on the red packets a few times and received a total of 51,331 yuan. Then he put his phone in his pocket and stepped on the gas pedal, heading toward the shopping mall. Today, Lin Fan bought Huang Ling a bunch of clothes, shoes, and cosmetics. He spent a total of 1,398,000 yuan. When they passed by a car dealership, Lin Fan spent another 470,000 yuan to buy a Mini Cooper for Huang Ling. In the past, Lin Fan had planned to buy a car for Huang Ling. However, at that time, Huang Ling said that she was always with Qiu Ziqian and that the two of them could use one car. As it turned out, when Qiu Ziqian had something to do, Huang Ling did not have a car to use. It was very inconvenient. At night, Lin Fan and Huang Ling went to a 2-star Michelin restaurant. They ordered top-grade foie gras, M5 Wagyu beef, caviar egg tarts, and cheese snails, as well as a bottle of Romanée Conti. This dinner cost 43,320 yuan. As the two of them ate, they listened to the faint sounds in the restaurant while admiring the night view outside the French windows. It was very relaxing and comfortable. That night, Lin Fan and Huang Ling arrived at Yiki City. Perhaps it was because of the moonlight shining on Huang Ling's body that she gradually felt extremely hot. Huang Ling's body began to heat up, and her pretty face gradually became hot. O epsilon. 3 epsilon. Letter 2C9, letter 2C9. RIP. 281 mature spirit tea, delicious. Lin Fan went to school in the morning, listened to classes, slept, and ate. The past 2 days were extremely dull and leisurely. After school today, Lin Fan returned to the coiling dragon villa. He first sat on the sofa and played with his phone for a while. As if he had thought of something, he could not help but mutter, "It seems it's been a while since I watered the spirit tea plants." As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up and walked toward the lake where the spirit tea plants were planted. In the next moment, Lin Fan was stunned. This was because he had only planted the spirit tea plants 2 weeks ago. Now they were already as tall as half a person. They were all green too. It was as if a green ocean had been added to the boundless lake. When a gentle breeze blew past from afar, a sweet fragrance wafted over, causing Lin Fan's entire body to feel refreshed and relaxed. Just the smell alone was so good. How good would the tea be when drinking it? As Lin Fan thought about it, he quickly plucked a batch of tea leaves, washed them, and fried them. His movements were extremely swift, skilled, standard, and natural. If there was a tea maker here, they would definitely be shocked. This was because frying tea was a skill. However, Lin Fan pushed his technique to the extreme. Even if he was compared to an expert who had specialized in frying tea for more than 10 years, he would not be inferior. However, Lin Fan was only in his 20s. Could it be that he had started frying tea leaves when he started walking? Simply unbelievable. In fact, it was normal for Lin Fan to have such superb tea frying skills. After all, he had expert-level tea ceremony skills, so it was naturally not a problem for him to fry tea leaves. About an hour later, the curled-up tea leaves were placed in front of Lin Fan. Then Lin Fan chose the right amount of tea leaves to brew. Lin Fan could not wait to drink the tea. He poured it into his mouth eagerly. Clear, fragrant, and refreshing. The aftertaste was endless. After drinking the tea, Lin Fan felt as though his entire soul had been cleansed. All the fatigue and discomfort in his body were swept away. Even Lin Fan could not help but praise good tea. Then he could not help but drink a few big glasses. This tea, it can definitely prolong one's life. Hence, Lin Fan plucked a large batch of tea leaves and continued to stir-fry them at home. If one drank ordinary tea at night, it would be very difficult to fall asleep. However, spirit tea was the complete opposite. It allowed Lin Fan to sleep more comfortably than usual. The next day, after Lin Fan had his lunch, he took a big box of tea leaves that he had prepared last night and drove his Mercedes-Benz toward Qing City. It was good stuff. Naturally, he had to give it to his parents at the first possible moment. Lin Fan sped along the highway and arrived at his house in about an hour. Just as Lin Fan got out of the car, a surprised cry sounded from afar. "Brother, why are you back?" Even though Lin Fan had not seen the person, he knew that it was his sister Lin Xiaoyao just by hearing the voice. "Yeah, I brought something back. You came at the right time. Come over and help me carry it." As Lin Fan spoke, he pointed at the big box in the trunk. "Brother, I'm your sister," Lin Xiaoyao protested. "I'm a girl. Do you have the heart to let me carry such a big thing?" "How can I bear to?" Lin Fan said. "But this is for your own good. Look at you, your face is getting sharper and sharper. You have to move some things and exercise a little. Only then will you be able to grow rounder. Won't it be better for you to be round?" After Lin Fan finished speaking, he did not forget to pinch Lin Xiaoyao's cheeks. He shook his head. "It's getting more and more serious." "Brother," Lin Xiaoyao protested again. Even though she was shouting, she still carried the big box according to Lin Fan's instructions. It doesn't seem very heavy," Lin Xiaoyao said. "Brother, what's inside? Could it be facial masks?" At this point, Lin Xiaoyao's eyes lit up. Lin Fan was just about to answer when Dai Weixu's happy voice rang out. "Lil Fan, you're back." "Yes, I am," Lin Fan smiled. Beside him, Lin Xiaoyao, who was carrying a big box, said, "Mom, I'm here too." Lin Tao, who was in the bedroom, heard the sound and came out. He said, "Lil Yao, why are you carrying such a big box?" Then he said in a blaming tone, "Lil Fan, aren't you going to help Lil Yao? You're her brother." As he spoke, he went forward to help Lin Xiaoyao carry the box. However, Lin Fan was one step ahead and took the box from Lin Xiaoyao. As a son, of course, he could not trouble his parents. Lin Xiaoyao could not help but raise her white and tender chin as she smiled smugly at Lin Fan. That look, she was like a victorious little swan. "What's in the big box?" asked Dai Weixu. Lin Xiaoyao could not help but prick up her ears to listen. Obviously, she was also very curious. Lin Fan replied, "There are tea leaves inside. They taste pretty good." Lin Xiaoyao could not help but look disappointed when she heard that. She pursed her lips and said, "What's so good about tea?" Lin Tao's eyes lit up. "Is that so? Then I want to have a good taste of it." As he spoke, he opened the box. He took a suitable amount of tea leaves and put them into the kettle, filling it with boiling water. Whoosh! Instantly, the rich fragrance of tea filled the entire room. Even Lin Xiaoyao, who was not interested in tea, could not help but sniff and swallow her saliva. Lin Tao could not wait to pour himself a cup. Gulp! As the tea entered his throat, an unprecedented sense of relief floated to his heart. At this moment, Lin Tao felt as if he had instantly become 10 years younger. Moreover, he had arrived in the overlapping mountain forests. He quietly watched the stream flow, the tender shoots spread out, and the gentle breeze blow. Everything was so fresh and so natural. Lin Fan poured a cup of tea for his mother and said, "Mom, try this tea too." Dai Weixu had long been attracted by the fragrance of the tea. She took the teacup and took a sip. Her face immediately revealed an expression of enjoyment that was difficult to hide. Lin Xiaoyao, who was beside them, saw how intoxicated her parents were. She quickly found a cup and said, "Brother, quickly pour a cup for me, I want to drink it too." Lin Fan smiled, "I thought you didn't drink tea." "Brother, I want it," Lin Xiaoyao said coquettishly. Lin Fan smiled and shook his head. Then he poured her a cup of tea and said, "Be careful, don't burn yourself." Gulp gulp. Lin Xiaoyao did not care much and poured the tea into her mouth. Soon, she shouted excitedly, "It's so delicious." Then she held out her cup and shouted, "Brother, 282 awesome, Elder Chin's invitation." The family drank tea and chatted at home. It was extremely relaxed and warm. At this moment, Lin Xiaoyao seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Oh right, brother, did you solve Hale conjecture?" She saw the news on her phone today. However, the news only mentioned the school and the person's name. There was no photo at all. Initially, Lin Xiaoyao had planned to call Lin Fan today to ask him. Now she could ask him face to face. Lin Fan replied, "Yeah." Lin Xiaoyao's eyes immediately widened as she shouted, "F***CK, awesome." "Lil Yao, you're a girl, you need to watch your words," Dai Weixu scolded. "Mom, that's Hale conjecture," Lin Xiaoyao said. "It's an unsolved problem in the world." "You should still watch your words. Do you still want to get married in the future?" Dai Weixu said. "Why would I marry?" Lin Xiaoyao asked nonchalantly. "If I marry, what about my brother's money?" Time at home was like a stream of water passing by quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was the second day. Under the urging of his parents, Lin Fan ate lunch and drove the Mercedes-Benz to Jiangbei. Just as he arrived at the Coiling Dragon Villa, the phone in Lin Fan's pocket rang. He looked at the caller ID and was surprised. It was because the caller was Old Master Qin Weiming. Lin Fan had a good impression of this old man. He was bold and forthright, and he would repay kindness. More importantly, if it were not for Qin Weiming's group of people who had sacrificed their lives and fought hard, he would not be living a happy life today. Lin Fan did not hesitate and answered the call. "Hello, Elder Qin. I came to Jiangbei with an old friend," Qin Weiming said after a pause. "He's not in good health. Can you come over to visit him when you're free?" This was his personality. He did not like to beat about the bush and be polite. Lin Fan was not disgusted by this. On the contrary, he also liked this kind of communication. Old Master Qin Weiming's good friend was probably an old hero. Thus Lin Fan replied, "All right, I'll be right there." After hanging up the phone, Lin Fan casually packed 2 bags of tea leaves and drove the Mercedes-Benz G-Class into the distance. Not long after, Lin Fan arrived in front of the manor that he had been to before. Just like that time, there was a sentry at the door. Clearly, they had already received orders. They did not stop Lin Fan's car and just let it pass. At this moment, Qin Weiming Yue Zixiao, who had a badge on his shoulder, Hong Hanlin, the head of Jiang province, and the others were sitting in the courtyard and chatting. Qin Weiming heard the noise and slowly turned around. He laughed heartily and said, "Lin Fan, you came at the right time, we were just talking about you." Instantly, everyone present turned their gazes to Lin Fan. One had to know. Everyone present was of high status, and their bodies were filled with a dense aura. An ordinary person would probably be so frightened that their legs would tremble and their backs would be drenched in sweat even if they faced the gaze of any one of them. They would not dare to go forward. However, Lin Fan remained calm. "What are you talking about, Elder Qin?" he asked with a smile. When everyone saw this, they nodded secretly. "I told him you're good at chess, but he doesn't believe me," Qin Weiming said. As he spoke, he pointed at the old man sitting in the wheelchair beside him. Lin Fan could not help but size up the old man. Although the old man was skinny and his skin was wrinkled, his cloudy eyes were like an eagle soaring in the sky. He was very spirited and gave people a feeling of dignity without anger. "My name is Zhang Jian, little brother Lin. Just now, Elder Qin made you sound so godly. But I've always believed that seeing is believing. Moreover, Elder Qin likes to go around bragging. So little brother Lin, can you play 2 rounds with me?" Qin Weiming immediately glared at him and said, "Old Zhang, when did I like to brag?" Zhang Jian smiled and said, "Why are you afraid of being laughed at by exposing yourself in front of so many people? Are you angry from embarrassment? In fact, who dared to laugh at him?" Qin Weiming was so anxious that he stomped his feet. All right, Lin Fan, hurry up and take him down, don't hold back." Lin Fan looked at the chess table beside him and the boiling water. "I've brought some good tea over, how about this? I'll make some tea for everyone first. Then we'll drink tea and play chess. What do you think, Mr. Zhang?" The middle-aged man who was standing behind Zhang Jian with the badge on his shoulder took a step forward and opened his mouth to say something. One had to know. Old leaders like Zhang Jian and Qin Weiming could not simply consume anything. Even if it was just tea leaves, it would not work. However, Qin Weiming beat him to it and said, "All right, then let's make tea first." Then he turned to Zhang Jian and said, "I forgot to mention that Lin Fan's tea art is also at the master level." "Really?" Zhang Jian asked. At this moment, Lin Fan walked over with 2 large bags of tea leaves. He put the tea leaves into the teapot, then poured a full pot of boiling water. Finally, he poured the tea leaves into cups. Only then did he say, "Elder Qin, Elder Zhang, and everyone else, please have some tea." Seeing this, Zhang Jian looked at Qin Weiming strangely. That look, it was as if he was saying, "Is this the master-level tea art?" Qin Weiming's face turned slightly red as he shouted, "Lin Fan, you didn't make tea like this last time." After all, he had just bragged about Lin Fan's tea art. It was simply a slap in the face in the blink of an eye. Lin Fan said that was too wasteful last time. Qin Weiming seemed to want to say something, but Zhang Jian smiled and said, "Not bad, drinking tea like this is simple and wasteful, I think it's good." As he spoke, he picked up the teacup and poured it into his mouth. Gulp! After drinking the tea, Zhang Jian seemed to have been immobilized. His entire body was completely frozen. At this moment, Zhang Jian seemed to have returned to the era of his strong body and extraordinary years. He no longer needed a wheelchair. He could carry a spear and a machete, run on the ground with all his might, and knock down enemies one after another. Everything was so smooth and relaxing. The middle-aged man who was standing behind Zhang Jian with the badge on his shoulder saw that Zhang Jian was holding the teacup without moving for a long time. His heart suddenly tightened as he asked anxiously, "Old leader, what's wrong?" This shout finally pulled Zhang Jian back to reality. He sincerely praised, "Good tea. 283 tea name, spirit tea." At the same time, Qin Weiming also picked up his cup and poured the tea into his mouth. Instantly his tiger eyes widened as he shouted, "Good tea." Then he picked up the teapot, poured another full cup and brought it to his mouth. "Old Qin, my cup is empty too. Don't you have hands?" Qin Weiming glanced at him. Although he said that, he still poured a cup for her. Then he said to Hong Hanlin and the others, "Don't just sit there, take your own cups and drink." "Why do you want me to serve you?" When everyone heard this, they hurriedly said, "We'll do it ourselves." As a matter of fact, when they heard Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian's praises, they were already very interested in the tea. However, due to Qin Weiming's and Zhang Jian's identities, they did not dare to make a move. Hearing Qin Weiming's words, the crowd did not hesitate anymore. They picked up their teacups and poured the tea into their mouths. As soon as the tea entered their throats, a refreshing feeling that they had never felt before immediately surfaced in their hearts. This feeling, it was as if their bodies, throats, and even their stomachs were all weighed down by mud. However, they were suddenly washed by a clear spring. It was a sense of clarity and relaxation that they had never felt before. Everyone's faces revealed an intoxicated expression that was difficult to conceal. At this moment, Zhang Jian, who was sitting in a wheelchair, said, "I've drunk quite a bit of tea before, but even they are far inferior to this tea, little brother Lin. What kind of tea is this?" Everyone around pricked up their ears. It was obvious that they were also very concerned about this. If they could drink this tea often, it would definitely be a pleasure. If they gave it to someone else, it would definitely be the best gift. After drinking this tea, it can make one feel refreshed. It detoxifies and nourishes the skin. It can also help prolong one's life. It's very magical. It's a little like the spiritual liquid in fantasy novels, so I call spirit tea. After all, Lin Fan could not say that he got it from a red packet. Of course, even if he did say it, everyone would only think that he was joking. When everyone heard that Lin Fan had used a special method to grow the tea and that the amount was very small, they all revealed a helpless look. Forget about giving the tea as gifts, they might not even be able to drink it a second time. Zhang Jian said, "This tea actually has such magical effects, spirit tea, it's a good name." Although he said that, he did not care much about whether he could maintain his appearance and prolong his life. The key was that the tea was indeed delicious. After a pause, Zhang Jian continued, "My body is getting worse and worse year by year. Maybe I won't be able to open my eyes again when I close them one day. With these 2 bags of tea leaves, I think I should be able to hold on for a few more years." "Little brother Lin, thank you for the tea leaves." Qin Weiming, who was still drinking tea, shouted, "What do you mean by that?" "He gave the leaves to all of us." Lin Fan looked at the 2 old men who were like children fighting over their favorite toys. He could not help but laugh. "Although there aren't many tea leaves, I can still give some to Elder Qin next time." Haha, Zhang Jian was overjoyed when he heard this. "Look." However, before he could finish speaking, he could not help but cough violently. Cough, cough, cough. In fact, he even seemed to be out of breath. The expression of the middle-aged man with the badge on his shoulder changed drastically. He hurriedly shouted, "Doctors." 2 doctors in white coats ran over quickly and went forward to help. At this moment, Zhang Jian's coughing suddenly slowed down and disappeared. He waved his hand and said, "There's no need, I'm fine now." "Old leader, for the sake of your health, it's better for you to have a physical examination first," said a short and thin doctor. "It's just a cough, what's there to make a fuss about?" "Yes, sir." The 2 doctors did not dare to say anything. However, the atmosphere at the scene was not as relaxed as before. It became extremely solemn. Everyone was worried about Zhang Jian's health. At this moment, Lin Fan smiled and said, "Indeed, Elder Zhang is just coughing. There's no need to make a fuss about it, just drink some water." As he spoke, Lin Fan spent 10 million yuan to buy medical water from the system and handed it to Zhang Jian. The middle-aged man with the badge on his shoulder frowned slightly and took a step forward, looking like he wanted to say something. "That's right," Zhang Jian said casually, "I'll just drink some water and I'll be all better." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hand to receive the medical water and was about to pour it into his mouth. "Old leader, you can't," the middle-aged man hurriedly dissuaded him. Then he said to Lin Fan in a very strict tone, "What kind of water is this?" Lin Fan understood that this was the responsibility of the middle-aged man. Dedication to duty was the most basic requirement of a soldier, not to mention that he probably held a higher position. Therefore, Lin Fan was not angry. He opened his mouth and prepared to explain. However, Zhang Jian shouted, "What are you shouting for? Isn't it just a small bottle of water?" As soon as he finished speaking, he poured it into his mouth. Gulp. "Old leader," the middle-aged man widened his eyes and shouted. Zhang Jian acted as if he did not hear him. He curled his lips and said, "It doesn't seem to have much taste, it can't compare to the spirit tea just now." Then he shouted, "All right, I've drunk the tea and the water, let's play 2 games of chess now." Lin Fan nodded his head and said, "All right." Qin Weiming shouted, "Lin Fan, don't hold back, you have to win him." As he spoke, he even rolled up his sleeves. That appearance, it was as if he was going to fight someone. "You're a junior so you can start first," Zhang Jian said. "Then I'll accept your offer," Lin Fan said. "Fire the cannons." Pegasus. The 2 of them moved the chess pieces quickly. It made a crisp sound when the chess pieces touched the surface of the board. It was like a hurried piece of music. It had to be said that Zhang Jian's chess skills were indeed not bad. At least he was the strongest player Lin Fan had played with so far. However, Zhang Jian had encountered Lin Fan. He had professional chess skills and absolute focus. As the game progressed, Zhang Jian's reaction became slower and slower. However, Lin Fan was getting faster and faster. At this moment, Lin Fan moved the chess piece again and said, "General, dead chess piece." Zhang Jian was slightly stunned. Obviously, he had not thought of this move. Qin Weiming, who was sitting beside him, laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, good, Lin Fan played well. As expected, you didn't disappoint me. I didn't ask you to come here in vain." 284 Stand Up Toast. Although Qin Weiming looked like a boorish old man, in fact, he had a clear mind and deep thoughts. Otherwise, he would not have been able to lead his generals to defeat the enemy and obtain the final victory. The reason why Qin Weiming kept praising Lin Fan was not just because Lin Fan was good at chess. The most important reason was to emphasize that Lin Fan was one of them. This was to vouch for Lin Fan. Zhang Jian was just like him, his identity was too unusual. Although Zhang Jian drank the unknown liquid that Lin Fan took out, he was fine for the time being. However, what if something happened later? Would it act up later? If that really happened, Lin Fan would be in a lot of trouble. Even if nothing happened to Zhang Jian, Lin Fan would still be investigated. Qin Weiming was protecting Lin Fan and taking responsibility for him. This required great courage and trust. Lin Fan naturally understood this logic. He could not help but have a better impression of Qin Weiming. He also knew that Zhang Jian would not suffer any harm after drinking medical water and that there would only be endless benefits. Zhang Jian also understood the meaning behind Qin Weiming's words. He snorted and said, "You old geezer, why are you wishing for me to die so quickly? Let me tell you, if it weren't for my legs, I would have dropped you on the ground right now." As he spoke, he even lifted his legs forcefully. Zhang Jian often did this kind of action. However, there was no reaction from his legs each time. Today, his legs were miraculously raised. Zhang Jian's pale eyes immediately widened, and his face was filled with disbelief. Just like that, his legs stopped in the air, and his body trembled slightly. The middle-aged man with the badge on his shoulder also noticed this and quickly said to the doctors, "Quickly help the old leader take a look at his legs." The two doctors were stunned for a moment. Then, they quickly went forward and gently massaged Zhang Jian's legs and took his pulse. Soon the two doctors were shocked. The middle-aged man asked anxiously, "How's the old leader's legs?" "There are too few instruments here. We need to conduct a more in-depth examination." The short and thin doctor hesitated. However, judging from the current situation, the old leader's legs may have a chance of recovery. Zhang Jian, however, directly threw his head back and laughed loudly. "There's no need for that. There's no problem with my legs, ha ha ha." That was because Zhang Jian could stand up from his wheelchair. This scene stunned everyone present. The eyes of the middle-aged man with the badge on his shoulder turned slightly red. He had always been by Zhang Jian's side and knew very well how much this once all-powerful general wanted to stand up. He had seen Zhang Jian looking at his own legs and secretly grieving. Zhang Jian had tried to stand up many times but fell to the ground in a sorry state each time. He had seen Zhang Jian lying on the ground and walking with his hands. The middle-aged man grew up listening to Zhang Jian's legend. The person he admired the most was Zhang Jian. It was also because of this that when he saw this hero in such a sorry state, he felt extremely aggrieved. However, there was nothing he could do. Now Zhang Jian actually stood up. Men did not shed tears easily, but it was only because they had not reached the point of sadness. At this moment, Zhang Jian said in an extremely solemn tone, "Lin Fan, thank you." Everyone was stunned for a moment before they suddenly remembered the bottle of water. Could it be? Was it that small bottle of water that made Zhang Jian stand up? Soon, Qin Weiming confirmed everyone's thoughts and laughed. "Old Zhang, you don't know how precious that bottle of water is." Even though Lin Fan is a member of the Dragon Division, he spent quite a bit of effort. Qin Weiming could not help but think of how Lin Fan had used the same solution to bring his grandson back from the gates of hell. Looking at Lin Fan, he could not help but have a look of gratitude. In reality, when Lin Fan took out a small bottle of unknown liquid for Zhang Jian to drink, many people present had shaken their heads secretly. They thought to themselves, "This young man is too rash." Some of them even started to distance themselves from Lin Fan to prevent themselves from being caught in an undeserved calamity. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Fan with surprise and envy. They were surprised that Lin Fan was from the mysterious Dragon Division. They were envious of Lin Fan for helping Zhang Jian stand up. In the future, he would definitely obtain great benefits. Zhang Jian continued to stand for a while before he had no choice but to sit back in the wheelchair. It had been too long since he had moved his legs. If not for medical water, it would have been a fool's dream for him to stand up in this lifetime. Then, Zhang Jian underwent a detailed examination at the request of the two doctors. It was fine if they did not check, but after the examination, everyone was shocked again. This was because Zhang Jian's necrotic legs had already completely recovered. As long as he did some rehabilitation exercises, he could walk freely like a normal person. His body's indicators had all returned to normal at this moment. It was a miracle, a miracle. The sun was setting. The fiery red sun dyed the entire sky with a vibrant color like a blooming flower. It was incomparably brilliant. On the large table in the courtyard, there were more than 20 dishes of delicious food. Under the request of Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian, Lin Fan sat at the head of the table. Lin Fan, let me give a toast to you first. Qin Weiming picked up his wine glass and said. Elder Qin, what are you doing? Zhang Jian immediately shouted. Of course, I have to be the one to make the first toast. He made me stand up again. As he spoke, he also picked up his wine glass. He helped you stand up again, but he also saved my grandson's life, Qin Weiming said. I must make the first toast. Zhang Jian and Qin Weiming were both the few remaining old leaders. If someone were to receive a toast from them, no, even if they were to drink at the same table as them, they would definitely be overjoyed and brag about it for the rest of their lives. Now Zhang Jian and Qin Weiming were fighting to give a toast to Lin Fan. Everyone present, including the leaders of Jiang province and several men with badges on their shoulders, looked at Lin Fan with envy. In the next few days, besides going to school, Lin Fan was often invited by Zhang Jian and Qin Weiming to play chess in the small courtyard. His days were relaxed and leisurely. After a few days of recuperation, Zhang Jian could already stand up easily and walk a few steps at will. His body was getting better and better and his entire face was flushed. He often laughed non-stop. At this moment, Lin Fan's phone vibrated slightly. It was a message from Hu Tian. Hu Tian, my grandfather is celebrating his birthday. Can I borrow you for 2 days and have you come to Sha City? Seeing this, Lin Fan replied without hesitation. All right, I'll go pick you up now. Hu Tian, no need, I'm already in Sha City. Lin Fan nodded silently. No wonder teacher Tianchen did not come to class these few days. After Lin Fan and Hu Tian sent a few more messages, he brought a large box of spirit tea and placed it in the Mercedes-Benz G-Class before speeding toward the highway. Sha City was located in Hu Province, while Jiangbei City was located in Jiang Province. Although the two cities were located in different provinces, they were only a few hundred kilometers away from each other. It was convenient to drive there. Lin Fan drove following the speed limit and arrived at Sha City in about 3 hours. Then he continued to drive according to the location Hu Tian had sent. At this moment, an army green jeep suddenly appeared in front of him. A muscular man about 1.8 meters tall walked out. He was surrounded by an aura similar to Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian. He was a soldier. The man walked to Lin Fan's window and said calmly, "You're Lin Fan." "Yes, and you are." Lin Fan was a little confused. "I'm Hu Tian's second brother, Hu Shaodong said. Teacher Tianchen's second brother, wasn't this his brother-in-law then? Thus Lin Fan greeted, "Hello, second brother. Follow me and don't get lost." Hu Shaodong frowned. His tone was not good. However, Lin Fan was not angry. After all, he had already won over Hu Tian. If Lin Xiaoyao had a boyfriend and he was unfamiliar with him, he would probably not be nice to him either. After Hu Shaodong finished speaking, he returned to the jeep. Then he stepped on the accelerator and the whole car sped forward like a roaring beast. "If you want to enter our family, you have to keep up with my speed." As Hu Shaodong spoke, he looked in the rearview mirror as if he wanted to see how far behind he had left Lin Fan. However, at the next moment, Hu Shaodong was slightly stunned. That was because the Mercedes-Benz that Lin Fan was driving was right behind him. He seems to be a good driver, but what about now? As soon as he finished speaking, Hu Shaodong stepped on the accelerator even harder. Instantly the jeep sped up again. When he looked at the rearview mirror again, he realized that Lin Fan was still following closely behind him. In fact, the distance between the two was the same as before. There was no change at all. How is this possible? Hu Shaodong was completely serious. He began to accelerate. However, Lin Fan's Mercedes-Benz GG seemed to be one with Hu Shaodong's Jeep as he followed behind. As Hu Shaodong continued to accelerate, he often looked in the rearview mirror. He did not notice that a car had broken down on the side of the road. Hu Shaodong's expression changed slightly. In order to avoid the car, he turned the steering wheel hard, causing the Jeep to fall directly into the ditch beside him. The front cover hit a rock and black smoke rose. Lin Fan's reaction was very fast. He turned the car around and easily avoided the passing cars. He then stopped beside the Jeep. Hu Shaodong got out of the car in a sorry state. When he saw Lin Fan standing beside him, his face darkened. Originally, he had wanted to use his superb driving skills to leave Lin Fan far behind. Then, he would show Lin Fan that it was not easy to marry his sister. The result. In the end, not only did he fail to shake off Lin Fan, but he even got into a car accident. It was too embarrassing. Lin Fan said, "I'll get someone to help you tow the car to repair it." "No need, someone will come to deal with it later," Hu Shaodong said. At this moment, the phone in Hu Shaodong's pocket vibrated slightly. He looked at the message and frowned. He began to pace around. "Take my car," Lin Fan said, "let's go home first." Even though Hu Shaodong did not want to sit in the same car as Lin Fan. After all, it would be surrendering to Lin Fan. However, he thought of the WeChat message just now. All right. After Hu Shaodong got into the Mercedes-Benz, he crossed his arms and shut his mouth tightly. Regarding this, Lin Fan was happy to be quiet. About half an hour later, a spacious courtyard appeared in front of them. There were 2 sentries standing at the entrance of the courtyard. They were strict and solemn, making people afraid to approach them. If an ordinary person saw this scene, they would probably be shocked. Hu Shaodong glanced at Lin Fan as if he wanted to see such a reaction from him too. However, he was destined to be disappointed. Lin Fan's expression was still very relaxed and calm. It was as if he was returning to his own home. In fact, this was normal to Lin Fan. After all, Lin Fan often went to Qin Weiming's and Zhang Jian's residences. The defense there was several times stricter than here. After the sentry finished checking, Lin Fan stepped on the accelerator and drove inside. At this moment, there were many Audis and military green Jeeps parked in the courtyard at the back. In front of the courtyard, there was a huge longevity peach and many longevity buns. The word longevity could be seen everywhere on a red background. A group of men and women in formal attire were standing together and chatting with each other. At this moment, Hu Tian walked out from inside. Hu Tian was wearing a red lace dress today. Her beautiful face was outlined with light makeup. Her long black hair was tied up high and she wore a pair of silver high heels. Gentle and generous like a noble princess. Although there were many people between Hu Tian and Lin Fan, they still saw each other at the first moment. Hu Tian walked over with a smile and said, "You're here." "Yes, I'm here," Lin Fan said. Then Hu Tian held Lin Fan's arm generously. At this moment, another army green jeep stopped steadily in the courtyard. Then there was a commotion. "Young Master Huang." "Hello, Young Master Huang." "Young Master Huang, 286 fake, congratulations." Huang Tian listened to everyone's greetings and nodded slightly. He then walked forward arrogantly and indifferently. Not only did they not get angry, but they also followed behind Huang Tian like pugs. In the next moment, Huang Tian's footsteps suddenly stopped. His hawk-like eyes narrowed slightly and locked onto Hu Tian and Lin Fan, who was holding onto her. At this moment, a vigorous voice suddenly sounded from afar. "Thank you everyone for coming to my birthday banquet." Then, an old man wearing a tang suit with gray hair walked into the courtyard. When everyone saw him, they cupped their fists and said, "Hello, old Master Hu." Greetings, old Master Hu. Clearly, this old man was the birthday boy today and Hu Tian's grandfather, Hu Nanshan. A man in a suit carried a gift box and said, "I wish old Master Hu good fortune and longevity." Hu Nanshan accepted the gift and smiled. With the first person starting, the people behind also took out their gifts and said their blessings. "I wish old Master Hu a happy life. I wish old Master Hu a long and healthy life. I wish old Master Hu a long life, happiness and health." Finally, Huang Tian took a step forward and said, "I wish old Master Hu good luck and eternal health." As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly walked forward with a beautifully packaged box that was about 1 meter long. The short and skinny man who had been following behind Huang Tian like a pug said in surprise, "What gift is this? It's actually so long." "I know that old master who likes to study calligraphy and painting," Huang Tian said. "Not long ago I happened to get an authentic painting by Tang Bohu, Spring Tree Autumn Frost, so I brought it here to give it to old master Hu." Tang Bohu, Spring Tree Autumn Frost. It was simply too famous. Therefore, even though everyone in the courtyard was either rich or noble, at this moment, they could not help but exclaim in admiration. "It's actually that painting. As expected of young Master Huang. What a big deal." Just as Huang Tian had said, Hu Nanshan did like to study calligraphy and painting. When he heard that this was Tang Bohu's Spring Tree Autumn Frost, his turbid eyes could not help but light up. Then he laughed heartily and said, "Good, good, ha ha ha, I've admired this painting for a long time. Today I have to appreciate it properly." As he spoke, he opened the box and slowly unfolded the painting inside. Everyone present raised their heads and looked at the painting with curiosity. Their eyes were filled with admiration. Immediately, someone praised green mountains, flowing springs, as expected of Tang Bohu's authentic work. "This painting is simply too good. Not bad. This is the first time I've seen such a beautiful painting." Hu Nanshan looked at the painting in his hands and nodded repeatedly, feeling extremely satisfied. Lin Fan shook his head slightly, revealing a look of disdain. This was normal. That was because Lin Fan remembered very clearly that the real Spring Tree Autumn Frost was lying in his coiling dragon villa. If he had known that teacher Tianshan's grandfather liked calligraphy and paintings, he would have brought it along. One had to know that Lin Fan had obtained Spring Tree Autumn Frost from a red packet. There was no way it was fake. In that case, the painting in front of him was clearly fake. Furthermore, Lin Fan still had the eyes of true sight. Huang Tian saw Lin Fan's actions and expressions. Contempt. Was he looking down on the painting that he had given the old master? Huang Tian was already filled with hostility toward Lin Fan. At this moment he finally exploded. "What do you mean by shaking your head like this?" Huang Tian said coldly. Instantly, everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Fan. When they saw Lin Fan and Hu Tian holding hands, they immediately understood something. Facing so many gazes, Lin Fan's expression was calm as he said, "Isn't it normal to shake your head when a counterfeit item is being gifted?" Everyone immediately started discussing. Counterfeit. Is he talking about Spring Tree Autumn Frost? It shouldn't be, it can't be. Huang Tian's face sank as he shouted, "This is not a place for you to spout nonsense." "My greatest strength is telling the truth," Lin Fan said. Following that, he used the eyes of true sight on the painting and carefully examined it. Instantly, Lin Fan could clearly see how this painting was copied, made old and marked 5 years ago. Lin Fan said, "Look carefully at the bottom left corner of this painting. Is there a small letter A?" Everyone, even Hu Nanshan, could not help but follow Lin Fan's words and look at the bottom left corner. Soon someone shouted, "There really is an A on the paper." "Yes, I think I see it." One had to know. Tang Bohu was a talented scholar in the Tang dynasty. At that time there were no English letters at all. The authenticity of this painting was immediately clear. Huang Tian's face instantly turned extremely ugly. He had always thought that this was a real painting. Otherwise, he would not have given it to Hu Nanshan as a birthday gift. Huang Tian took a deep breath and tried his best to calm himself down before saying, "Old Master Hu, I didn't investigate this matter properly. I'm sorry, I actually brought a fake. I'll give you another birthday gift later." Hu Nanshan waved his hand and said, "There's no need to apologize. You were also deceived by others. In addition, I like this painting very much. As for, it doesn't matter if it's the authentic work of Tang Bohu or not." Then he slowly put the painting back into the gift box. Although he said that, his attitude toward this painting was clearly not as enthusiastic as before. The short and thin man who had been following behind Huang Tian rolled his eyes and said, "You're my cousin's friend, right? I wonder what gift you brought for the old master today." He had already made preparations. Everything would be fine as long as Lin Fan's gift was a little lacking. Then he would attack crazily to please Huang Tian. Lin Fan did not say much. He opened the Mercedes-Benz and took out a large box of tea leaves from the trunk. "I wish old Master Hu good fortune, good health, and a long life." Seeing this, the short and thin man could not help but laugh out loud. "Tea leaves? What a big box! Moreover, there's no packaging. Could it be that this tea was bought in bulk from a stall?" "Cousin Hu Tian, this friend of yours, how generous, haha. 287 lousy tea leaves." Seeing this, many people present began to discuss in low voices. Although Hu Nanshan was not a greedy person, at this moment he could not help but frown. From the actions of his granddaughter, Hu Tian, Lin Fan should be the boyfriend she was talking about. Hu Tian's boyfriend, his future grandson-in-law, bought a box of tea leaves from a roadside stall as a birthday gift to him. Was he not taking him too lightly? With so many guests present, was it not laughable? At this moment, an Audi A6 drove over from afar and stopped steadily in front of the courtyard. Then, a middle-aged man with slightly white hair who looked to be about 50 years old walked over with his head held high. When everyone saw him, they immediately revealed a hint of admiration and exclaimed, "Commander Liu." "That's right, Commander Liu is here." Hu Nanshan frowned slightly and went up to Liu Kaiming personally. Liu Kaiming quickened his pace and handed over a gift. "I wish old Master Hu good fortune and longevity. This is the gift my father chose for you. Originally, he wanted to come personally to congratulate you on your birthday, but it's a little inconvenient with his body. He could only let me do it on his behalf. I hope you won't blame him." "Why would I blame him?" Hu Nanshan's face was flushed. "Elder Liu's health is more important. If he really did come, I'm afraid there be no peace at my birthday banquet." If the surviving elders of Hua Nation were to be arranged in a seating order, Elder Liu might not even be able to sit in the first row. However, he would definitely have a seat in the second row. It was definitely a rare thing for Elder Liu to personally choose a birthday gift and ask Liu Kaiming to visit him. Hu Nanshan and Liu Kaiming chatted as they walked, occasionally letting out peals of hearty laughter. When Liu Kaiming passed by Lin Fan, he stopped in his tracks and his face was filled with shock. He was all too familiar with Lin Fan. However, the leader suddenly received a phone call saying that Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian had arrived in Jiangbei City. Therefore, the leader brought him to meet the two old men. Liu Kaiming remembered clearly how Qin Weiming praised Lin Fan before he arrived. At that time, he was extremely curious about Lin Fan. When Lin Fan made old master Zhang Jian drink a bottle of the solution and made him stand up, Liu Kaiming was deeply impressed by old master Zhang Jian's happy expression. Liu Kaiming also knew that Lin Fan was a member of the Dragon Division and that he had saved the life of Qin Weiming's grandson. At the same time, he was the benefactor of old master Qin Weiming, and old master Zhang Jian. Lin Fan's future was definitely limitless. Liu Kaiming had always wanted to befriend Lin Fan, but he did not have the chance. He did not expect to meet him here. Hu Nanshan did not notice the change in Liu Kaiming's expression. He said to him, "There's still some time before the banquet. Let's sit down and have some tea first." Speaking of tea, Liu Kaiming could not help but think of the spirit tea that Lin Fan had given old master Qin Weiming and old master Zhang Jian. Just thinking about the taste of spirit tea, he seemed to have smelled that unique fragrance. his entire person could not help but feel much more comfortable. Shaodong, go and get the De Hong Pao tea and the purple clay teapot from my room, continued Hu Nanshan. Okay, Grandpa, Hu Shaodong said. The short and thin man standing at the side took the opportunity to shout, "Why is this box of trash tea still here? It's an eyesore, throw it aside quickly." As the short man spoke, Liu Kaiming finally noticed the large box of green tea leaves in front of Lin Fan. Seeing this, Liu Kaiming's pupils constricted. Spirit tea. That was right. After drinking it, his entire body, no, his entire soul was cleansed. No wonder he seemed to have smelled the fragrance of spirit tea just now. It was not an illusion. Old Master Qin Weiming and Old Master Zhang Jian became like two children, constantly quarreling over the two small bags of spirit tea. Here there was a whole box. This. If Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian were here, what would their expressions be? At this moment, Liu Kaiming suddenly noticed the short and thin man. He was about to kick the spirit tea aside like a piece of trash. Kicking the spirit tea. He wanted to kick the spirit tea that Old Master Qin and Old Master Zhang Jian treated as a treasure. What are you doing? Liu Kaiming shouted. On the one hand, Liu Kaiming did have a strong family background. However, the most important reason was that he had excellent personal ability. He was strict and iron-blooded. He alone could suppress hundreds of warriors, making them fear him. Now Liu Kaiming was shouting at the short and thin man. One could imagine how powerful he was. At this moment, the short and thin man seemed to have shrunk into an ant. Meanwhile, Liu Kaiming turned into a roaring lion. The Lion King roared, making everyone tremble. The short and thin man felt his entire body go limp as cold sweat rolled down his back. He stammered, it's not a big deal to throw lousy tea leaves. He stammered for a long time before finally speaking. It was fine if he did not say anything. After he said it, it angered Liu Kaiming again. HMPH, a muffled groan sounded out. It was extremely vicious, causing the short and skinny man to feel a chill down his spine. At this moment, another army green jeep sped over. Then Yue Zixiao strode over. When Lin Fan caught sight of him, his face revealed a look of surprise. That was because Yue Zixiao had always been by Qin Weiming's side. In Lin Fan's impression, Yue Zixiao seemed to only leave Qin Weiming's side when he drove him home. He did not expect him to come to Shaw City. When the crowd saw Yue Zixiao, there was another round of discussion. In contrast to the doubts of many people, Hu Nanshan's heart skipped a beat. He quickly went up to him. Yue Zixiao was also a commander. More importantly, he was the head guard of Qin Weiming. Old Master Qin Weiming could sit in the first row. To a certain extent, Yue Zixiao could represent Old Master Qin Weiming. How could Hu Nanshan not be excited? Yue Zixiao's words surprised Hu Nanshan even more. Old leader Qin Weiming and old leader Zhang Jian asked me to wish Old Master Hu a happy birthday and good health. Not only Old Master Qin Weiming but even Old Master Zhang Jian wanted to congratulate him. When Hu Nanshan heard Yue Zixiao's words, he was so happy that his face turned red and his breathing became rapid. In fact, Hu Nanshan was not the only one who was excited. The entire scene was in an uproar. Most of the people present had red bloodlines. It was because of this that everyone understood the weight of Qin Weiming's and Zhang Jian's names. It could be said that Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian were the two pillars of Hua Nation. Now they actually personally sent someone to congratulate Old Master Hu. What kind of honor was this? Some people were speculating in their hearts. Could it be that the Hu family had gotten in touch with these two old men? If it was really like this, the Hu family was probably going to soar into the sky. However, no one knew that Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian had asked Yue Zixiao to come to congratulate Old Master Hu on his birthday because of a phone call with Lin Fan not long ago. Originally, Qin Weiming wanted Lin Fan to play chess with him in the courtyard. However, Lin Fan said that he had to go to Shaw City because his girlfriend's grandfather was celebrating his 80th birthday. Whether it was the medical water that Lin Fan brought out or the spirit tea that he gave them, he was worth getting closer to. Additionally, Lin Fan saved the life of Qin Huaiming's grandson and helped Zhang Jian stand up. They had to be friends. Therefore, Zhang Jian and Qin Huaiming decided to congratulate Lin Fan's girlfriend's grandfather. However, with their status, it was absolutely impossible for them to suddenly go to Sha City. Their safety was not guaranteed. The last time when Qin Huaiming went to Qing City to celebrate Lin Fan's grandfather's birthday, he had prepared it for a long time. Then, with the company of the leaders of Jiang Province, Jiangbei City, and Qing City, he finally had a chance. It was not that they were afraid of death. What a joke that would be. Back then, when they were bombarded with bullets and cannons, they never frowned even once. It was because of the rules. What they represented was not just their own lives. Hence, Qin Huaiming and Zhang Jian asked Yue Zixiao to come over to congratulate Old Master Hu. Hu Nanshan naturally did not know about this. After he heard Yue Zixiao's words, he was so excited that he could not help but tremble. Please thank the old leaders for me. Then he quickly asked, are the two old leaders well? Yue Zixiao nodded, everything is fine. That's good, Hu Nanshan said happily. Following that, Yue Zixiao took out 2 scrolls of calligraphy and said, these are the congratulatory gifts from old leader Qin Huaiming and old leader Zhang Jian. The calligraphy from old master Qin Huaiming and old master Zhang Jian. What kind of honor was this? Even if the painting that Huang Tian had given him was authentic, it was far from comparable to these 2 scrolls. Hu Nanshan's cloudy eyes blurred with excitement. Please thank the old leaders. Then he carefully accepted the scrolls. At this moment, Yue Zixiao saw Lin Fan and Liu Kaiming standing not far away and walked over. As soon as he got close, a special fragrance floated into Yue Zixiao's nose and mouth. Yue Zixiao often asked about this fragrance these days, the fragrance of spirit tea. Soon, his gaze landed on the huge box of spirit tea in front of Lin Fan, as well as the foot that was about to kick the box over. Yue Zixiao was very clear about how precious spirit tea was to Qin Huaiming and Zhang Jian. They even wanted to hug the spirit tea when they slept. Now it was actually going to be kicked over like trash. Yue Zixiao shouted, remove your stinky foot. If Liu Kaiming was like a roaring lion, Yue Zixiao was like a soaring dragon. The short and thin man was so frightened that he fell to the ground. The box of spirit tea was finally safe. Seeing this, Yue Zixiao grunted, then he turned his attention back to Lin Fan and nodded his head gently. Although the two of them did not speak, this slight nod showed that they knew each other. Hu Nanshan was slightly shocked. Lin Fan, was he not just a student? How did he know Yue Zixiao? It seemed like he was not as simple as he thought. At this moment, Hu Shaodong brought the purple clay teapot and De Hong Pao over. General Yue, General Liu, please sit down and have some tea. Hu Nanshan cleared his throat. Liu Kaiming and Yue Zixiao, both of them had taken such a fancy to the tea leaves that Lin Fan had given him. Out of curiosity, Hu Nanshan did not use De Hong Pao to make tea. Instead, he used the loose tea leaves in the box. First, he quietly looked at the loose tea leaves, but he did not find anything special. With a trace of doubt, he casually grabbed a handful of tea leaves and placed them into the purple clay teapot before pouring in an appropriate amount of boiling water. Then, he habitually poured the boiling water that was mixed with tea leaves into the trash can beside him. Why did you throw it away? Almost at the same time, Liu Kaiming and Yue Zixiao shouted in unison. Liu Kaiming knew how delicious spirit tea was. Yue Zixiao knew that even Qin Huaiming and Zhang Jian cherished every drop of tea, especially the first cup. Qin Huaiming and Zhang Jian named the first cup first tea. In fact, they often fought over the first cup of tea. Hu Nanshan naturally did not know about this. He was at a loss and said, I'm just washing the tea. He recalled his actions and steps again. There did not seem to be any problems. Was it not normal to wash the tea before drinking it? Liu Kaiming and Yue Zixiao shook their heads slightly and did not say anything. Now that the first cup of tea had been poured into the trash can, they could not take it out of the trash can, right? Hu Nanshan poured the boiling water into the teapot again. After a while he poured the tea. General Liu, General Yue, please. The two of them did not stand on ceremony, or rather, they could not wait any longer. After drinking the spirit tea, Yue Zixiao's and Liu Kaiming's faces revealed an expression of enjoyment that was difficult to hide. Seeing this, Hu Nanshan could not help but pour the tea into his mouth curiously. Whoosh! Hu Nanshan was 80 years old. His body was like a rusty machine that could not function normally. After drinking the tea, the rust on his body seemed to have disappeared completely. His entire body glowed with a brilliant light as if he had come back to life and was extremely relaxed. He had never tasted such delicious tea leaves before. However, before Hu Nanshan could praise it, Yue Zixiao, who was next to him, spoke first. This is my first time drinking the second cup of this tea. The taste is indeed amazing. Then, Yue Zixiao looked at the large box of spirit tea beside him and turned to Lin Fan. When the two old leaders learned that your girlfriend's grandfather was celebrating his birthday, they wanted to come over personally to congratulate him. However, there was no time to arrange it, so I came to congratulate him on their behalf. Luckily, they didn't come. If they did, I wonder how jealous they'd be after seeing such a big box of spirit tea. The moment he said that, everyone fell silent. The two old leaders were Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian. Who were Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian? They were the top pillars of existence. What did everyone hear? These two huge pillars actually sent their regards because of Lin Fan. This young man, who looked to be in his 20s, got the two powerhouses to congratulate his girlfriend's grandfather on his birthday. This young man, he actually had such a great reputation. Who exactly was he? Initially, Hu Nanshan wanted to praise the tea, but at this moment the words seemed to be stuck in his throat. His brain completely shut down. For a moment, he even forgot what the taste of the tea leaves he had just drunk was. Hu Nanshan had just thought that his granddaughter's boyfriend was not simple. Looking at it now, he was very not simple. When Hu Nanshan found out that his granddaughter had a boyfriend and that he was just an ordinary university student, he was shocked. Hu Nanshan's first reaction was that he was not suitable for her. He should think of a way to make his granddaughter give up on Lin Fan. At this moment, Hu Nanshan had thrown this thought far to the back of his mind. In its place, he was wondering when his granddaughter could marry Lin Fan and when they could have children. Hu Shaodong, who was standing beside him, was also stunned. What did he hear? Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian, the great pillars of the country, wanted to personally come to congratulate his grandfather on his birthday because of Lin Fan. He had actually wanted to give him a show of strength just now. This. Hu Tian's face revealed a look of surprise. She knew that Lin Fan was a genius mathematician and also very rich. However, she did not expect Lin Fan to have such a deep relationship with Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian. Perhaps Liu Kaiming was the only one who looked more natural. After all, he had long known that Lin Fan saved Qin Weiming's grandson's life and even helped Zhang Jian stand up. Now, Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian wanted to congratulate Lin Fan's girlfriend's grandfather on his birthday. It was reasonable, right? After Lin Fan heard Yue Zixiao's words, he could not help but rub his nose and smile. Old Master Qin and Old Master Zhang don't have to be jealous. In the future, they'll have enough spirit tea. Lin Fan had always been a person who repaid kindness with kindness. Since Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian gave him face, and Lin Fan had a good impression of the two old men. Naturally, Lin Fan would not be stingy. Yue Zixiao said seriously, if the two old leaders heard your words, they would definitely be very happy. Then Lin Fan raised his head and looked around. When the short and skinny man who had just gotten up noticed Lin Fan looking at him, he collapsed onto the ground again. What kind of stupid thing did he just do? Even Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian had to respect this young man, yet he was mocking him just now. The short and skinny man understood that he was done for. As for Huang Tian, who was the center of attention earlier, when he noticed Lin Fan's gaze on him, his forehead and back could not help but break out in a layer of sweat. His heart was filled with regret. Why did he want to compete with Lin Fan for Hu Tian? Why did he show hostility toward Lin Fan and even berate him? At this moment, someone walked over and said to Hu Nanshan, "Old master, the birthday banquet is ready." Hu Nanshan nodded slightly, then his gaze fell on the spirit tea in the big box. At this moment, he no longer had the disgust he had when he saw the large box of loose tea leaves. Now he looked like a treasure hunter who had finally found treasure, his turbid eyes faintly lit up. Hu Nanshan seriously said, "Shaedong, you put this box of good tea in my room, no one is allowed to casually touch it." Even Qin Weiming and Zhang Jian would be jealous when they saw this box of tea leaves. One could imagine how precious it was. When Hu Nanshan noticed Liu Kaiming and Yue Zixao staring at the tea leaves in the box, he could not help but continue. In addition, get 2 bags later and give some to General Liu and General Yue. When Liu Kaiming and Yue Zixao heard this, their faces revealed a smile that was difficult to hide. Today's birthday banquet was not held in a hotel. Instead, it was held in an empty square in the courtyard. At this moment, the square was already filled with tables. According to seniority, Lin Fan and Hu Tian should be sitting 3 tables behind. However, they were asked to sit at the first table. They were even asked to sit next to the birthday boy, Hu Nanshan. The birthday boy was the main character today, so he should be the focus. However, today, more people had their attention on Lin Fan. Hu Nanshan also felt this, but he was not angry. On the contrary, he was even happier. The banquet lasted for a full 3 hours before it slowly came to an end. The sky gradually darkened. Hu Tian and Lin Fan strolled leisurely in the green courtyard. At this moment, Hu Tian suddenly stopped in her tracks and looked at Lin Fan with a smile. Lin Fan asked, "Is there something dirty on my face?" No, Hu Tian shook her head. "Then what are you looking at?" Lin Fan asked. "I'm trying to see how many other shocking identities you have," Hu Tian said. "There are many possibilities. A professional racer, a professional pianist, a calligraphy expert, the richest man in the world," Lin Fan said. Hu Tian nodded in understanding. "You believe me?" Lin Fan asked. "Since you said it, it must be true," Hu Tian said. Lin Fan said, "But these identities aren't the most important." Hu Tian blinked her eyelashes and looked at Lin Fan curiously. Lin Fan smiled, "My most important identity is your boyfriend." When Hu Tian heard this, her pretty face blushed slightly. She was a mathematics professor at Jiangbei University and Lin Fan's teacher. However, at this moment she felt like a little girl who had just eaten candy. Her mouth and heart were filled with sweetness. Moonlight shone on Hu Tianlong's body, making her glow. The two of them looked at each other affectionately and slowly approached each other. Finally, they could not help but embrace each other. O epsilon. 3 epsilon. Letter 2C9 letter 290 apologize, how to woo a woman. The next day, Lin Fan had a sumptuous breakfast with the Hu family. He was extremely satisfied. At this moment, a series of dull footsteps came from not far away. Then a middle-aged man walked over with Huang Tian in tow. When he saw Lin Fan, he quickened his pace. Then, the middle-aged man saluted Lin Fan and said, "Mr. Lin, I'm Huang Tian's father, Huang Jai. Yesterday, my son was ignorant and offended you. Today, I brought him here to apologize to you." After saying that, he turned to Huang Tian and shouted, "What are you still standing here for? Hurry up and apologize to Mr. Lin." Huang Tian hurriedly took a step forward and bowed slightly. "Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, it was my fault yesterday." "Damn it, is this how you apologize, bastard?" Huang Jai shouted angrily. As soon as he finished speaking, he kicked Huang Tian's butt, causing him to fall to the ground. When his nose collided with the cement floor, a stream of blood immediately gushed out. He was in an extremely miserable state. Huang Jai did not hold back at all and kicked him rather angrily. Last night, when Huang Jai found out about what happened at the birthday banquet, he hurriedly asked someone about Lin Fan. Only then did he know that Lin Fan had saved Qin Weiming's grandson and helped Zhang Jian stand up. One had to know. Zhang Jian was Huang Jai's previous leader, and he had given Huang Jai a new lease on life. Without Zhang Jian, there would be no Huang Jai today. Huang Jai had always wanted to repay Zhang Jian, but in the end, his son actually offended Zhang Jian's benefactor. How could this not anger Huang Jai? Huang Tian was in pain, but he did not dare to resist. He could only kneel on the ground like a stray dog and kowtow. Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Lin Fan glanced at him and said calmly, I hope there won't be a next time. Lin Fan and Hu Tian did not stay in Sha City for long. After lunch, they returned to Jiangbei University. A life that was unchanging would make Lin Fan feel bored. He would sometimes lie down in the villa to rest, drive around, and go to school to experience the leisurely student life. Only then would it be interesting. F***, he's hitting me. Quick, save me. How did he release his skill? Song Yi and Zhang Jinbao held their phones and shouted. When the screen showed the word defeat, Song Yi cursed, F***, Lubin is such trash, he even tried to snatch the shooter from me, damn it, I have to report him. Zhang Jinbao said, Angela is even worse, she has never controlled anyone before, and her big damn, I have to report her. The two of them shouted as they tapped on the screen. It seemed like this was the only way to vent the anger in their hearts. When Song Yi raised his head, he realized that Lin Fan had walked in. He could not help but be shocked. Brother Lin Fan, why did you come back? Probably when you guys first started the game, Lin Fan said. Brother Lin Fan, do you want to play around? Song Yi asked. King, Lin Fan asked, maybe next time, I haven't downloaded it yet. At this moment, footsteps sounded from outside the corridor. Soon, Ma Zhang entered the dormitory. Ma Zhang is back too, Zhang Jinbao asked. We haven't had a meal together for a long time, how about eating out today? Let's go to the crab treasure on East Street, Song Yi immediately shouted. I heard that the crab pot and barbecue there are all superb. No one had any objections to this. East Street was about 5 to 6 kilometers away from Jiangbei University. Lin Fan drove the Mercedes-Benz and arrived at the destination in just 10 minutes. As soon as they reached the entrance of Crab Treasure, they were greeted by a fragrant aroma that made them want to drool. Upon walking into the shop, they looked around and saw a crowd. There was laughter and discussion very lively. Lin Fan, Song Yi, and the others found a table and quickly sat down. They ordered the signature crab pot, various skewers, and a crate of beer. This restaurant was indeed famous as it had attracted many people. The crab meat was plump, the skewers were spicy, and the taste was very delicious. Brother Lin Fan, how exactly do you woo a woman? Ma Zhang drank a bottle of beer and asked hesitantly. Lin Fan asked, so you have a target? Ma Zhang stammered, no, I'm just curious. You're asking the wrong person, Zhang Jinbao laughed. As long as he drives the Ferrari out, countless women will chase after him. Lin Fan shook his head helplessly. Nonsense, Song Yi followed up. I feel that brother Lin Fan is really sincere. Lin Fan nodded and said, it's good that Song Yi understands me. For example, if a woman wants to eat ice cream, brother Lin Fan will go and buy it immediately. However, in order to prevent the ice cream from melting, brother Lin Fan will drive the Lamborghini to get to the woman as fast as he can and let her eat the ice cream. Thus, the woman will definitely be very touched and fall in love with brother Lin Fan. Lin Fan's mouth twitched. This guy had a lot of tricks up his sleeve. The dinner party lasted until 9:30 p.m. before they returned to the dormitory. Lin Fan looked at Zhang Jinbao, Song Yi, and Ma Zhang hugging each other as they were already drunk. Sometimes they would shout and sway. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. This was the life of a student. There were no schemes or conspiracies. Everyone was so relaxed and happy. At this moment, many people were carrying big bags and pushing suitcases to Jiangbei Airport with smiles on their faces. However, a look of surprise quickly appeared on their faces. That was because a large group of foreigners with a different skin color had arrived at Jiangbei Airport today. They were all wearing thick glasses, white shirts, and pocket watches. They looked very refined and knowledgeable. At this moment, Professor Adavan and Professor Jeffrey walked out of the room with tired looks on their faces. We've finally landed, Adavan sighed. I feel like I'm about to meet God. I hope this mathematics report doesn't disappoint me. Don't worry, it won't let you down, you have to know, Jeffrey said. Lin Fan is the man who solved the twin prime number conjecture at a report and created history. We only need to think about whether he will bring us any surprises this time. Jeffrey's eyes lit up as he spoke. Ativan did not say much about this. To solve a difficult math problem, one not only needed strength but also inspiration. Lin Fan was able to solve the twin prime number conjecture during the report. This was because of his ability and also because of a coincidence. Ativan did not believe that this would happen again. 291 smells good, interested. When Ativan walked out of the airport, he looked at the tall buildings and wide roads in the distance and muttered, Hua Nation seems different from the movies and news. It's not just different, Jeffrey said. This is only Jiangbei, a first-tier city in Hua Nation, but I think it's not much different from Seattle. Especially the food here, it's definitely better than anywhere else in America. Speaking of food, Jeffrey could not help but gulp. He said excitedly, Let's go, I'll take you to eat the local delicacies. Ativan waved his hand. No thanks, I've been on the plane for the whole day, I'm a little dizzy, I can't eat any food right now. I just want to go to the hotel as soon as possible and have a good rest. There's a gourmet restaurant near the hotel, Jeffrey said while pulling him, just keep me company. After a while, they arrived at a restaurant serving local delicacies. Looking at the colorful dishes and smelling the alluring fragrance in the air, Ativan finally could not help but scoop a spoonful of food into his mouth. Instantly his eyes lit up. Then Ativan's entire head was buried in the bowl, and his mouth was full of grease. Jeffrey looked at the food in his bowl and said, Ativan, didn't you say you wouldn't eat? Ativan said, it tastes so good. There were many foreigners like Jeffrey and Ativan. They were all here for Lin Fan's Hail Conjecture report. In order to welcome their arrival, the campus of Jiangbei University was redecorated with greenery and flowers. Some of the old buildings had also been repainted to make them look brand new. This was not because they thought too highly of foreigners. Instead, it was to better showcase Jiangbei University's reputation and promote Jiangbei University to the world through the great scholars and professors who came to attend the report. It was also to reduce the smearing of Hua Nation by some Western media. Lin Fan walked along the winding path of the campus. As a breeze blew past, he could not help but smell an elegant fragrance. Lin Fan slowly turned around and realized that Hu Tian had walked to his side. Dean Hu Chuan asked me to look for you. I didn't expect to meet you in the blink of an eye, Hu Tian smiled. Lin Fan was puzzled. What's the matter? Hu Tian smiled and said, Of course, it's because of tomorrow's report. He asked me to remind you that it will officially start at 9 a.m. tomorrow. No wonder Hu Chuan was so nervous. After all, Lin Fan had a precedent. Lin Fan was half an hour late for the report last time. He almost made a fool of himself. For this report, regardless of the scale or the number of people, it was bigger and higher than the last time. Hu Chuan did not dare to have any more accidents. Lin Fan said, So it's about this, I'm already aware. At this moment, many of the documents that Hu Tian was holding in her arms fell to the ground. Lin Fan bent down to pick them up and realized that they were filled with complicated mathematical calculations. Lin Fan asked casually, Are you researching something? Hodge conjecture, are you interested in studying it? Hu Tian asked. After saying this, Hu Tian's beautiful eyes flickered faintly. That appearance, she seemed to believe that as long as Lin Fan said he was interested in it, the Hodge conjecture would be solved very quickly. In Hu Tian's eyes, Lin Fan had become an omnipotent person. It was no wonder that she had such thoughts. Lin Fan was simply too extraordinary. First he solved Zhou's conjecture, then he solved the twin prime number conjecture. Then it was the Hale conjecture. Not long ago, Hu Tian suddenly realized that Lin Fan had a deep relationship with Zhang Jian and Qin Weiming. Gradually, in Hu Tian's heart, Lin Fan's figure seemed to be 10,000 feet tall. He emitted a dazzling light and had omnipotent power. Lin Fan looked at Hu Tian's expectant gaze and could not help but rub his nose. He was about to say that he was not interested. However, in his mind suddenly, a crisp notification sounded. Ding, you've triggered a mission, solve Hodge conjecture. Reward 5 golden packets. Seeing this, Lin Fan's words were stuck in his throat, and he could not say anything. Then he said, "Yes, I'm interested." After all, these were 5 golden packets, he definitely could not miss out on them. When Hu Tian heard this, her beautiful eyes immediately lit up. Then Hu Tian brought Lin Fan to her office to carefully study the Hodge conjecture. It had to be said that the Hodge conjecture was indeed one of the most difficult problems of the millennium, even though Lin Fan had professor-level mathematics experience and absolute focus. It was impossible to solve it in a short period of time. As the sky gradually darkened, there was not much progress in solving the Hodge conjecture. In order to do more in-depth research, Hu Tian brought Lin Fan to her house. Perhaps it was because the discussion was too fascinating and exciting, Lin Fan and Hu Tian did not sleep the entire night. The entire building shook the entire night. The next day the sky was clear. The fiery red sun rose slowly, setting off the colorful flowers placed at the entrance of Jiangbei University. It formed a beautiful scene of heaven and earth. Bright banners were hung on the campus of Jiangbei University. A warm welcome to all scholars and professors attending Lin Fan's Hale Conjecture report. Welcome to Jiangbei University. As soon as the foreign mathematics professors and experts arrived at Jiangbei University, they were invited into the auditorium by the teachers and volunteers who were already waiting at the entrance. Adavan looked at the surging crowd in the auditorium and sighed. Many old friends have come. Yes, after all, everyone wants to witness history, Jeffries said. Adavan shook his head and did not continue. It was because he had never thought of witnessing history here. The only thing he wanted to do was to personally see Lin Fan, this mathematics genius, and how he would explain the Hale conjecture. At this moment, Hu Qiuwen, the dean of the mathematics department of Jiangbei University, was also sighing. He had never thought that the mathematics department of Jiangbei University, which he was in charge of, would hold a world-class report. Moreover, it was held twice in a very short period of time. The associate director looked at his watch several times and said worriedly, "Lin Fan isn't here yet. Is he going to be late again?" Hu Qiuwen's heart tightened slightly as he said, "It should be, it can't be." 292 Report, Anticipation. Just as Hu Qiuwen was worried, muffled footsteps came from outside. Groups of old professors wearing thick glasses chatted as they moved forward and quickly found their own positions. Professor Barnington, who was sitting at the front, looked at the crowd in the auditorium and sighed. There seemed to be more people than last time. Professor Lancelot said, "After all, there are more people interested in the Hale conjecture than Joe's conjecture." Professor Lancelot paused and said, "Do you think his solution to the conjecture is correct?" "At least I didn't find any obvious problems," Barnington said. "Of course, we'll have to see the details of his report, however, I'm full of expectations for him." Lancelot nodded in understanding. Then he looked at the pocket watch hanging around his neck and said, "It's almost time." Barnington's expression became even more expectant. Compared to Barnington's anticipation, Hu Qiuwen's face was filled with anxiety. Lin Fan had not come. He saw that the report was about to start, but Lin Fan had not come. It was just like last time. What should he do? Therefore, Hu Qiuwen had no choice but to let the school leader go on stage first. He tried his best to say some superficial words to stall for time. Then he quickly picked up his phone and dialed Lin Fan's number. The phone rang for a long time, but no one picked up, just like last time. Hu Qiuwen listened to the gradually dissatisfied voices of many mathematics experts in the auditorium and could not help but feel anxious. Then Hu Qiuwen picked up his phone and called Lin Fan's counselor, Sun Yaedong, and Lin Fan's roommate, Song Yi. However, they did not know where Lin Fan was. Even so, Hu Qiuwen did not give up. He continued to make calls. When he called Hu Tian, he finally received good news. Hu Tian said, "Lin Fan and I stayed up to study Hodge conjecture yesterday. We woke up a little late, but we're already on our way over. We'll arrive in 10 minutes. After she finished speaking, her pretty face blushed. After hanging up the phone, Hu Chuan walked quickly to the stage and said in fluent English, "Lin Fan was studying the Hodge conjecture last night and lost track of time. Please forgive him, he's on his way." Originally, many people were already unhappy because the main speaker, Lin Fan, did not arrive on time. However, after hearing Hu Chuan's explanation, everyone's dissatisfaction instantly disappeared. Instead, they only had endless expectations. Many people started discussing in low voices. Do you think he wants to solve a math problem during the report? How is that possible? That's the Hodge conjecture we're talking about. It's one of the most difficult problems of the millennium. However, his spirit is indeed commendable. He's just solved the Hale conjecture and immediately threw himself into a new difficult problem. If I remember correctly, he has already solved Joe's conjecture and the twin prime number conjecture, right? Including Hale conjecture, he's already solved 3 difficult problems. Now he's targeting the Hodge conjecture. Is he still human? At this moment, footsteps sounded from outside the corridor. Creak. The doors of the auditorium were slowly pushed open. Then Lin Fan and Hu Tian finally walked in side by side. Instantly, everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Fan. The mathematics experts noticed that Lin Fan was not in a good state of mind. His dark circles were a little heavy. Everyone could not help but exclaim, "Indeed, there's a reason why Lin Fan could solve so many math problems at such a young age." It was all because of his hard work. Even though he was going to give a large-scale report in front of more than half of the world's famous mathematicians today, he still seized every second last night to challenge new problems. What kind of rare quality was this? All the experts silently gave Lin Fan a thumbs up and clapped. Lin Fan naturally did not know what the mathematicians were thinking. He did not care about the applause at all. He had already had the experience of holding a report, so he was even more relaxed this time. Lin Fan spoke into the microphone in fluent Hua Nation language, "Hello everyone, I'm Lin Fan." Then he picked up a pen and wrote on the electronic whiteboard. He quickly wrote down the clearest and most understandable solution to Hale conjecture. x1 equals 1, x2 equals 3, x1 plus 3 slash 2. x1 equals 3, x2 equals 3, x3 plus 3 slash 2. Everyone present was a mathematics expert. Many of them had studied the Hale conjecture for many years, and Lin Fan's calculations were very detailed. Therefore, many people could understand the steps. As time passed, Lin Fan's writing speed became faster and faster. The pen and the electronic writing board kept colliding, making a rapid and violent sound like a pleasant symphony. N equals 2m, fm, n equals 1m, n. xs plus 1 equals 3xs plus 1 slash 2n. Hale conjecture was proven to be successful. It was perfect. No one had ever seen such a perfect calculation. There was not a single flaw. Originally, some people had planned to pick on him during the report. However, at this moment, they found that they could not find any problem at all. They even started clapping. Immediately after, the entire auditorium was filled with thunderous applause. Normally, at this moment, the main speaker should turn around and thank everyone with a smile. However, Lin Fan still had his back facing the mathematics experts. He was still writing rapidly with the pen in his hands. Soon the mathematicians noticed this. Was the Hale conjecture not proven successful? Why was Lin Fan still writing the calculations? 1 slash 2a plus 12b. HKXQ equals 0. Finally, someone exclaimed, "Hodge conjecture, he's solving the Hodge conjecture." His words were like a deep water bomb, causing the entire auditorium to shake violently. Even though everyone knew that Lin Fan was studying the Hodge conjecture last night and even praised him for his hard work, there were too many people studying the Hodge conjecture. Most people would need a lot of effort to understand the Hodge conjecture, let alone solve it. After all, this was a problem of the millennium. Therefore, no one thought that Lin Fan would have a breakthrough in the Hodge conjecture in such a short period of time. What was Lin Fan trying to do now? He was trying to answer the Hodge conjecture in public. How was this possible? He had just solved the Hale conjecture. Professor Barnington, who was sitting in the front seat, watched Lin Fan write quickly. His turbid eyes gradually lit up as his wrinkled face became filled with anticipation. 293 finished answering, creating history again. When Lin Fan stood on the stage and wrote down the details of the Hale conjecture's proof process, his entire body and mind were completely immersed in the ocean of mathematics. He could not extricate himself. When Lin Fan wrote down the final conclusion of the Hale conjecture, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Absolute focus, you've triggered a flash of inspiration. Suddenly, the Hodge conjecture from last night's research was like a tidal wave in his mind. Then Lin Fan started to answer the Hodge conjecture. Lin Fan had already gotten the answer to the Hale conjecture from the system. Therefore, when he was writing earlier, he was very relaxed and fast. Lin Fan did not have a complete grasp of the Hodge conjecture. However, with a flash of inspiration, his writing speed was not slow at all. The difference was that the Hale conjecture used the clearest and most straightforward algorithm. At this moment, Lin Fan could not care less about anything else. In addition, the Hodge conjecture was much more complicated than the Hale conjecture. Therefore, even though everyone present was a great expert in the field of mathematics, the majority of the people could not keep up with Lin Fan's speed. Some people looked at the complicated calculations and felt dizzy. In the end, they could only choose to give up. A man in a white shirt said in a low voice, "Do you understand?" The person beside him said bitterly, "I understood the front part, but later on." The man in the white shirt heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he was not the only one who could not understand it. However, he soon became extremely bitter. Lin Fan was just a young man in his 20s. Yet he could not even understand his calculations. Professor Lancelot stared at the huge display screen for a long time and felt his eyes ache. It was also at this moment that Lin Fan slowed down his writing speed. Lancelot pinched his glabella and said, "It seems like he's in trouble. Professor Barnington, do you think he can succeed?" "He's in big trouble. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult." "What a pity," Lancelot said. In reality, just as Lancelot and Barnington had expected, Lin Fan had indeed encountered some trouble. In Lin Fan's mind, he was walking along the mountain path and was about to reach the peak, just as he was admiring the beautiful scenery. A cliff dozens of meters wide appeared on the road ahead. Lin Fan could not cross it at all. However, Lin Fan had already seen the beautiful scenery of the mountain peak with a quick glance. He was eager to climb to the top and admire it. Do you wish to increase the level of your professor-level mathematics experience? Yes. Ding, upgrade successful. Congratulations, you've received Grothendieck's mathematics experience. Do you want to use the double skill card? Yes. Lin Fan did not hesitate at all and used everything that could be used. Suddenly, a gorgeous rainbow bridge appeared in the middle of the cliff. Lin Fan walked on the rainbow bridge as if he was walking on flat ground. The distance between him and the beautiful scenery at the top of the mountain was rapidly shrinking. At the same time, Lin Fan's writing speed, which had just slowed down, increased once again. The pen and the electronic display screen collided rapidly and violently. It produced an even more shocking melody. Seeing this, Barnington's dim eyes once again blossomed with brilliant light as he said excitedly, he can really succeed." As if to verify Barnington's words, Lin Fan's writing speed became faster and faster. In the next moment, his wrist suddenly stopped and he slowly put down the pen. The entire auditorium fell silent. After a while someone shouted, "He succeeded. The Hodge conjecture has been proven. Heavens, I'm witnessing history again." Witnessing history again. That was right. Some of the people who attended the report at Jiangbei University had already been there once. Last time, Lin Fan solved a world-class problem in front of everyone, the twin prime number conjecture. He created a historical scene where he solved the problem on the spot. Today, he had replayed what happened that day. Furthermore, it was replaced by the Hodge conjecture, which was even more difficult. Immediately, everyone applauded with all their might, causing the entire auditorium to burst into thunderous applause. Hu Tian, who was sitting below the stage, kept looking at Lin Fan quietly. She watched as Lin Fan wrote down the proof process of the Hale conjecture and the complicated proof process of the Hodge conjecture. Hu Tian looked at Lin Fan's focused expression and serious actions. Gradually, her impression of Lin Fan started to grow bigger and bigger. When he wrote down the final answer to the Hodge conjecture, Lin Fan suddenly became as huge as the sun, filling Hu Tian's entire world. He's amazing, Professor Barnington praised sincerely. He's truly amazing. Professor Jeffrey, who was sitting in the front, shouted excitedly, Professor Adavan, did you see that? Did you see that? He has created history again. I told you. When Lin Fan wrote down the final answer to the Hodge conjecture, Professor Adavan was stunned. As a result, he did not hear what Jeffrey was saying at all. However, Jeffrey obviously did not realize this. He continued, since Lin Fan hasn't left yet, let's go over and ask a few questions. Then he grabbed Adavan's clothes and walked toward the stage. In fact, many mathematicians had the same idea as him and walked to the stage. However, Jeffrey was clearly faster. He brought Adavan to Lin Fan and said in fluent English, Hello, Mr. Lin, can I ask you a few questions? The 55th equation, which was xm plus 1 equals sm9 minus 5, how did you get it? At this moment, Lin Fan was in a good mood. When he put down the pen, a clear notification sounded in his mind. Ding, mission completed, solve the Hodge conjecture, you'll receive 5 golden packets. Lin Fan could still clearly remember how much he had gained from the previous golden packets. He believed that this time, the rewards would definitely not be any worse. Therefore, Lin Fan did not mind answering a few questions. Even though Lin Fan had professional English skill, he still chose to answer in the language of Hua Nation. However, he still chose to answer in the language of Hua Nation. It was because he was a citizen of Hua Nation. This formula has to be combined with the 35th equation, the 41st equation, and the 44th equation, which is 3x1 plus 5m equals 7s. After saying that, Lin Fan did not stay any longer. He turned around and walked backstage. Only Professor Adavan and Professor Jeffrey were left standing there, confused. Jeffrey, you're right, we need to learn the language of Hua Nation, Professor Adavan said after a while. Jeffrey nodded vigorously and said, That's right.